Tradoon.
Dirter. A dirter. Dirter.
I present to you the top 10 weirdest looking dinosaurs. I want to state the obvious and tell you that I'm going to be butchering the names of these dinosaurs. In at number 8, we have the Tradoon. Tradoon.
In 1856, the fossilized teeth of a small dinosaur were discovered in Montana. The species was aptly named Troodon, which means wounding teeth.
Tradoon.
When evolution passed out the stealth gene, Troodons lucked out.
Tradoon.
This drawer contains almost all of the North American identified specimens of Troodon.
Troodon was every inch the predator, with razor-sharp serrated teeth and large, hook-like claws. Troodon probably fed on our ancestors, the early mammals. Troodon may have posed a greater threat to mammals than any other predator on Earth. Troodon was suddenly cut down in its prime.
Tradoon.
Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to Paleontologizing. Welcome to our last stream for more than a week. I'm going to be going on vacation, the first real vacation I've done in, I don't know, maybe 5 years, something like that. Going to be leaving for that this evening. But I figured we'd sneak in a special bonus Friday stream today before I leave. I'm going to go into Puerto Rico to enjoy the beaches with Ios and Lordy, to see local wildlife. We're going to go birding and herping and do some geologizing as well. And I'm going to be looking into some family history in Puerto Rico as well. That's where my family is from on my dad's side, a few generations back. So I can't wait for that. It's going to be a ton of fun, and I'll make sure to take lots of pictures and be uploading those to Blue Sky and maybe to Discord too. We'll see. No promises there. But yeah, I'm going to be gone. So special bonus stream today. We're going to go over a little bit of fossil news. We might look at an old episode of Paleo World about Caribbean fossils. Very on theme. And then we're going to have a rollicking game of Who Wants to Be a Paleontologist. It's a lot like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, but much lower budget. But I'm going to be asking everyone questions. Trivia questions about things that we've talked about on stream over the past month. We'll see if you collectively chat as a group can win the proverbial $1 million. It is only proverbial in this case. Figurative, metaphorical. It's not a literal $1 million. Anyhow, it's gonna be a lot of fun. This is the first time we've done Who Wants to Be a Paleontologist since I last lived at my old apartment. So it's been about a year and a half almost. No, about a year and a half actually. So that's gonna be new to a lot of folks here, and I'm excited for that. I think we're gonna have a lot of fun. And there you go, Crimson Carnotaurus, yeah. Yeah. Email you things to post? We'll see, Claire, we'll see. Yeah, I appreciate that, Claire. Ios and Lordy, I think, are going to be getting on my case a little bit to actually post in the Discord, and it's a habit I should be getting into, especially with some new developments happening on the Twitch side of things. I don't think I'm at liberty to discuss anything yet, but exciting things are forthcoming. I want you to know. Gonna be seeing a ton of new birds? Oh yeah, my iNaturalist is gonna be brimming with new avifauna. Holy cow. Yeah. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be real good. Oh, hello, sweetie pie. How are you doing? Well, well, well. Oh, come here. Don't be shy all of a sudden. There we go. How are you doing, sweetie pie? Oh man, she is gonna miss me, as will Minnie and Moon Pie. How are you doing, sweetie pie? You're the first one to show up today, as you often are. Yeah, I wonder how long until Minnie comes in here. But we've got some cat sitters arranged. Gonna be spending some time with the cats, so we feel good about that, even though we're gonna miss them, and they're certainly gonna miss us. How you doing, sweetie pie? What do you think of my background today? Kind of a hodgepodge today. Yeah, got a Puerto Rican flag. We've got this new piece of art from Miss Capri Kell from yesterday. I said I was gonna put that up on the wall, and there it is. So, yeah. Promises made, promises kept. Thank you again, Miss Capri Kell, for sharing your talent with us. Sending me that lovely piece of art. Really appreciate it. What are you up to, sweetie? She's come to collect her due. Good stuff. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah, look at you. Oh. Is it time for some treats for you? Is that what time it is? Alright, let's make that happen, huh? There we go. Look at all those. My goodness. This actually, hang on, that one looks a little wonky. I'll throw that one out. But you can have the rest of the sweetie pie. Such deliciousness. Such quantities. How did that ever occur, sweetie pie? Very nice. Here, I'll be right back. Good stuff. Good stuff indeed. Meatworm says, what species is that? This we call Felis domesticus. Oh, where are you going? Domestic cat. One of my landlords here, there's 3 of them who live here in this house. Sweetie Pie there, and then there's Minnie Pie, and then there's Moon Pie. Felis landlordicus, there you go. Rhynchodactylus, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna miss them. And they're gonna miss me too, but they'll be in good hands while we're gone. Yeah, anyhow. So excited to have everybody here. And shoot, where are my manners? If anybody's new here, and there surely are some new people watching, I imagine. We're only 20 minutes into the stream. We've got 100 people watching. At least some people are going to be new. Welcome to Paleontologizing. My name is Danny Anduza. I'm a dinosaur paleontologist. I'm here on Twitch trying to do some good old-fashioned science outreach. Believe it or not, this is how I make my living. I'm trained as a paleontologist, so I study fossils. Dinosaur fossils in particular. Dinosaurs are what I publish on in the scientific literature, what I present on at scientific conferences. Dinosaurs are what I dig up during the summers. And in less than 1 month's time now, we'll be out in the Badlands of Wyoming, digging up dinosaurs live on stream. I'm gonna be out there for an entire month, hopefully streaming every single day. So I'm pretty excited about that. But anyway, these broadcasts are an opportunity to try and give you an inside peek into how paleontology works. I think everybody has some picture of fossil science, whether it's from movies or TV commercials or maybe what they happen to have learned in school. The whole point of these broadcasts is to show you firsthand how paleontology actually works. By doing things like excavating fossils, collecting specimens live on stream out in the field, to working in the laboratory, touring museum collections and exhibits, talking with other paleontologists, and doing a ton of Q&A. You ask questions, I do my best to answer them for you. And also go over new scientific papers, kind of what's been recently published in the world of fossil science. What's new and exciting? What's controversial? What are some growing consensuses? Consensus? Whatever the plural of consensus is. Talk about what's the current state of fossil science? How's it changing? Why is it important? Why is it relevant to your everyday life? What's the cool thing about fossil science? Once you start to understand the history of life on Earth, you see things in a different light. It gives you a perspective that you didn't have before, a deeper perspective, one that's informed by our evolutionary past on this planet. That's informed by where we come from. There's that old phrase that you can't know where you're going if you don't know where you've been. I think that's true. Paleontology gives us that perspective, and it's an important one. Choose consensi. There you go, Casey Snowart. Allosaurus has a nose for cool places to visit. Yes, indeed, Golganek. Yeah, I can't wait to go to the land of my forebears, on my dad's side at least, Puerto Rico. And Nell says, thanks to Danny, I can't hear the song he's picked for the old-timey readings bit without automatically associating it with fossils. Yeah, the Ashokan farewell there, Nell. That's this one here. Like from a Ken Burns Civil War documentary. Good song, you know? It's got staying power, I'll give it that. One might even say it slaps. I don't know who would say that. But, yeah. Anywho, good stuff. Yeah, and first time going? Yes, indeed, Casey. I've never been to Puerto Rico before. I had a chance to go back in 2012. My dad and my brother went back then.
Dig up dinosaurs?
And holy cow, Squilky, thank you for the raid.
Squilky
Welcome to
and their
Paleontologizing,
wanna
Squilky.
know what it's like.
Howdy, Squilky. How was your stream? I hope it was excellent. It's good to have you here. Welcome to Paleontologizing. How'd you find out about the channel? I'd love to know. Thanks for joining us. Looks like you were doing some just chatting. Have an amateur crafter. Very nice. Again, I hope your stream was a really good one. Welcome to Paleontologizing. My name is Danny Anduza. I'm a dinosaur paleontologist. I stream fossil science here on Twitch. We don't normally stream on Fridays, but I am going to be leaving for Puerto Rico this evening. And I'm going to be there for over a week. So, taking a bit of a hiatus, which is unusual for me. I usually stream 4 days a week here in my office, and 7 days a week when I'm out in the field digging up dinosaurs. So taking, 12 days off it's actually unprecedented. I haven't done this since I started streaming on Twitch 5 years ago now. So yeah, I've been following you for ages. Big fan of the fossils in Puerto Rico. Yeah, my family on my dad's side is from Puerto Rico originally, and I've never been. It's just saying that I had an opportunity to go back in 2012. My dad and my brother went and had an excellent time. I guess I had to choose between doing that and doing field work in Montana, digging up dinosaurs. It was a difficult choice. I chose my work. And in hindsight, it was definitely the right decision. I ended up making some really cool discoveries that summer, including a brand new species of horned dinosaur, which hopefully will be published in the next few years. But I still would have loved to have been able to go to Puerto Rico, and now I finally have the chance. So, doing that today, this afternoon. So yeah, it took some light bullying to get Danny to take the time off, to be honest, says Lordy. It did. Yeah. Many a wedgie were administered. I don't know if I'd call it light bullying. But it was effective. And I'm going. So everyone, you have Lordy to thank for that. Oh no, noogies too? Even the dreaded swirly, Casey Snowart. Yeah, thank God we didn't have to go for a swirly. There you go, Lordy, yeah. Anywho, yeah. Anyway, don't mess with Lordy. Definitely don't. Anywho, today we're going to be talking a little bit about Caribbean paleontology. We've got an episode of Paleo World lined up. There we go, right there. Island of the Giant Rats. That is in reference to literal giant rodents. It's not... Yeah. Fossil ones. We'll be talking about that in a bit. But first, let's see if we've got any news about St. George real quick. We'll talk briefly about the new Walking with Dinosaurs series that is premiering, I think, in just a couple weeks in the UK, and then in mid-June here in the States. We'll talk about that, and why I have something of a bone to pick with the BBC about this. It's personal. I don't normally talk about personal slights here on Twitch, but we'll talk about that just because it's, I think, kind of funny. Yeah, and then later on, at the end of the stream, we'll be having a rollicking game of Who Wants to Be a Paleontologist. Which, if that sounds similar to Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, that's intentional. We basically ripped that off, but it's a much lower budget version of that. And it's going to be a lot of fun. So, stick around for that. Yeah. And rodent of unusual size? I don't think they exist, says Tolkien Ontaku. Well, you shall say. First off, let's go ahead and check on the news from St. George. We'll see if... Oh, first off here. Here we go. For those of you who might be new here, here's something that we were, working on a couple weeks ago.
How's my volume levels, everybody? Volume is great. Thank you, Lenina. Excellent. Well, welcome, everybody, back to St. George, Utah. Welcome to this emergency fossil excavation. Glad you could make it today. Holy cow, we're going to have a fun stream. feeling a lot better rested than I was yesterday. A little bit more on the ball, so yeah, it's gonna be a good one. I'm glad you could make it.
Get on
if
with it.
anybody's here for the very first time,
Allow me to get interrupted by the poor Starlink internet
Anduza, I'm a dinosaur paleontologist.
Yeah.
I'm here on Twitch trying to do passion science outreach, talking to people about fossils, about natural history, and trying to do whatever I can to help out here. An emergency fossil dig, but this extraordinarily important fossil site is slated to be destroyed sometime around the end of the month, we are told. So we're here trying to excavate whatever fossils we can, trying to record as much data as we can, trying to salvage whatever we can before all this gets bulldozed. Sometime in May, it sounds like. So, yeah, that's...
Now, one of the things that I was trying to do is garner attention, material support, volunteers, however I could help out here. And we were successful in that endeavor. This is going to be news to at least a few people. We did it! The fossil site in St. George, Utah is now safe from the threat of being bulldozed. Here we go from the Salt Lake Tribune. A Utah city is pulling the plug on plans to build a power station on top of a premier fossil site. Here's why. Super exciting. We did it. Phenomenal news. So we've been riding that high since last Thursday when we found out. That was actually live on stream that we learned of this. It's 6 p.m. right there in St. George. We haven't gotten an update from Andrew yet. We can try and give him a call. There you go, Ms. Rules. Yeah, me too, almost. Like,
in anything else worthwhile. But yeah, maybe grab some scales. Okay. Hey, Danny.
Hey, Andrew. Hey, I hope it's okay that I called. I know you're busy.
Yeah, just a second. I'm going to put
Yeah.
you on speaker so I can hear you a little bit.
Cool.
Okay. So that was kind of a stressful meeting, but
I'm sorry to hear that.
it went
Shoot.
well, I think.
It went well? Excellent. Okay.
So they're not building the substation here anymore.
Holy cow, they've moved the substation plans?
Yeah, but they moved it across the street from the museum. And all the rock piles that we've moved over there, we now have to move them again.
It's a much, much, much better outcome than them bulldozing and destroying the fossil site. So we're very happy about that. Very, very happy about that. Let's see if we've got any additional news, any more reporting on this. Let's see. Might not have anything yet. But it seems the press coverage for this was instrumental in saving this site. And I like to think that this was part of it here too. At least in some small way. This community really pulled together. We had various people volunteering, people showing up in person who had heard about this project through these live streams. We had people donating funds, donating equipment, getting the word out by sharing things on social media. We really did make I think a profound impact here. Part of our success there was due to this community lending their support, and I'm immensely proud of that. So yeah. Anywho, yeah, good stuff. And how are places like these not protected better, says Meatworm? Well, In the United States, the legal landscape for the protection of fossils is, it's less than ideal, I'll put it that way. If fossils are found on private land, it could be the most scientifically important fossil anyone has ever seen. And yet, if it's on private land, it is the sole property of the private landowner. And they can do with it whatever they please. I actually talked about this on the news in the UK a couple years back. There we go.
Sticking with you, Danny, there was the case of the actor Nicolas Cage, who, into his possession there came a skull. Do you want to describe that and tell us what happened about that?
Sure. There's so many of these cases that it's sort of difficult to keep them separate sometimes. But if I recall correctly, this was a Tarbosaurus skull that Nicolas Cage, I guess, purchased at auction.
So they were calling it Tyrannosaurus bataar rather than Tarbosaurus bataar. Nowadays, most Tyrannosaur workers agreed that Tarbosaurus and Tyrannosaurus are different genera. So anyway, but they were calling it Tyrannosaurus bataar.
And that had been illegally smuggled out of Mongolia. This country kind of nestled between China and Russia. A wealth of...
And again, I'm embarrassed that I felt the need to describe the concept of Mongolia to the audience. People know where Mongolia is.
Dinosaur fossils from that country, one of the world's greatest, dinosaur fossil fields. Recently, the people of Mongolia have been trying to kind of take hold of their heritage and make sure that fossils from their country are not being illegally exported and sold. That had happened in the case of Nicolas Cage's purchase. And I believe it was seized by Interpol and actually taken back to the country of Mongolia.
I got that part wrong too. It wasn't seized by Interpol. It was seized by the Department of Homeland Security here in the U.S., not by Interpol. So I got that detail wrong, actually.
Where it rightfully belongs. So I think it's a perfect example of kind of how shady these deals often are. And if you're trying to buy dinosaur fossils, realize that there's a lot of kind of difficult things going on in terms of morality and in terms of law. These are not smart purchases to make.
David, moving away from this, I think, rather hideous illegal trade, tell us about the...
So this is David Waterhouse from Norwich in the UK. We'll skip past his part just a little bit, but I'll give you the link so you can watch the whole thing if you'd like. But I want to get to the part where we talk about the legal framework around the U.S. Yeah.
Get it back. And that's a good way of doing it.
Let me just go back to Danny for a moment. Danny, in the United States, do you have a proper legal environment to protect these bones and fossils?
It's a little bit complicated here in the United States. Unfortunately, if a fossil is found on private land, unfortunately from the perspective of paleontologists, then it's the property of the landowner, and they can do with it what they please. They could donate to a museum, or they could give it to their dog to chew on. Regardless of the scientific importance of whatever, the find might be, ultimately it belongs to the landowner. If it's from private land, if it's from public land, the sorts of lands that I work with, Bureau of Land Management land, state lands, then it belongs to the people of the United States, and it needs to be held in the public trust, held in perpetuity so that scientists can study it and the public can enjoy it. And that's what paleontologists like us think should happen for every scientifically important fossil. They're a benefit to all of humanity. They're part of our collective natural heritage. They belong in a museum.
Danny Anduza and Professor David Waterhouse, happy digging to you both. Thank you very much for being on GB News.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Leonardo da Vinci.
Anywho, yeah. We do have laws protecting fossils on public land. Excuse me.
All about until these boys come.
Executive Storm, 57 months. Holy cow!
Strong.
Still going strong, indeed. Executive Storm. Thank you. For your continued support. Yeah. Good stuff. Yeah. And Charlie's Dragon said, did Nicolas Cage give it back? He had to. It was seized by the Department of Homeland Security and repatriated to Mongolia. We might even have a... if we can find a video on that. And Sheriff of Rottingham, thank you for the follow. Welcome to Paleontologizing. It's good to have you here. This is from TMZ.
Utah raptors,
I guess we'll
the most dangerous dinosaur around.
And Plockman's Mustard, thank you for the 33 months of support. How time flies. Thank you, Plockman's Mustard. Producing the best plastic vessels for polyvinyl acetate glue in the field, the glue that we use on fossils. If you want a good container for that, buy some Plockman's Mustard. Eat it all, and then use the container for glue. Should we look at this? I guess. Oh boy.
Welcome to TMZ Jurassic, starring Nicolas Cage, Mongolia, and one of these ugly bastards.
The government of Mongolia is on the hunt for all of its stolen Tyrannosaurus Rex skulls that have apparently...
It's not Tyrannosaurus Rex. Tyrannosaurus Rex is from North America. This is Tarbosaurus. It's a member of the same family, Tyrannosauridae, but it's not Tyrannosaurus, and it's not Tyrannosaurus Rex.
Been smuggled out of the country. They've tracked down these skulls, one of which they believe belongs to Nicolas Cage now.
Yeah, Mongolia says some shady guys were digging into the rock, bringing out the dead dinosaurs, smuggling these national treasures out of the country and selling them with buyers possibly knowing they were stolen. Also, they're not T-Rexes, but Tyrannosaurus bataruses.
True. Yeah, okay. Well, Tyrannosaurus batar is Tarbosaurus batar. That's the general consensus. There's still probably a few researchers who think they should be part of the same genus, but it very well could be that they split a long time ago, and that Tyrannosaurus might actually be descended from North American Tyrannosaurids, things like Daspletosaurus. But that's a discussion for another time.
So really, there are subsets of Tyrannosauruses?
Yeah, this is a petite one. A Rex means Tyrannosaurus king.
Tyrannodoodle, dude. Tyrannodoodle.
Anyway, one of the skulls was auctioned off in New York in 2007, and looks like Cage was the buyer.
2007 was the year that Nick Cage went crazy. Bought 3 homes, 22 cars, 47 pieces of art.
And a damn dinosaur head for $276,000. Apparently outbidding Leo. But it was an illegal sale, so what's next? A face-off.
They approach him and they say, hey, your Tyrannosaurus skull is stolen, give it back. And according to the government, he said, okay.
Way to go, Nick Cage!
Yeah. So that's a lesson for everybody watching. If we have any wealthy robber barons or anybody like that thinking of purchasing dinosaur fossils, especially from countries where they're protected, like Mongolia, don't do it. Not only is it ethically wrong, not only are you helping to fund the illegal fossil trade, but there's a very good chance that your fossils will be seized and you won't even have the thing that you paid for. So, not a wise investment. Hello, Mini Pie. How are you doing? And, Meatworm says, are there laws in other countries you consider better? Yeah, nearly every country in the world except for the U.S. Well, sort of. Canada, our neighbors to the north, have, I think in many ways, much more sensible laws about this kind of thing. Fossils of vertebrate animals, so animals with bones, like for instance dinosaurs, they belong to the people at large.
If you're feeling a bit cheated,
belong
try
in a
blaming
museum.
the dinosaurs.
Even if they're on private land. Yeah, invertebrate fossils, they can be, I think, sold on the private market. You might have to have permits for some of the bigger, more impressive invertebrates, but for the most part, when people are looking to buy fossils, they're looking to buy bones, often of dinosaurs. And in Canada, those are They belong to the people. They're part of the country's collective natural heritage. They shouldn't belong to any one person, you know? That's the thinking there. And Canada also, I think, does a much better job than the US of actually funding science like paleontology. I've got a number of friends who went to Canada after graduating from Montana State University. And they got their PhDs there. And many of them have been doing really well since then. So, not everything in Canada is perfect, but by and large, I think they're doing a much better job than our country is in preserving their fossil heritage for future generations. And Canada has a disproportionate number of dinosaur paleontologists that country has produced. They're doing something right. Anyhow, yeah. What I always like to say too is that if anybody, and again, maybe there's somebody watching right now, or maybe you will end up having a conversation with somebody in the future or something. I'm just putting this idea out there because it needs to be spread. If there's a really wealthy person who is really interested in fossils, maybe really interested in dinosaurs, while it can be tempting to spend hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars to purchase a fossil, you might think that that's a good way to express your love for paleontology. It's not. It's a really lousy way of doing that. A way that will actually help the science and be a much better investment in the long run is to use a fraction of that money that you would have spent buying a super overpriced fossil, most of which might be made out of plaster or 3D printer filament or whatever. Rather than getting duped and, you know, falling for a scam where you're buying a fossil that's mostly plaster or plastic, use just a fraction of that money and fund some paleontological fieldwork. Donate some money to a paleontological crew so they can go out and dig up some fossils. They will end up in a museum, and they might even name a new species after you if it turns out to be a new species of dinosaur, let's say. That way you won't be known as somebody who just happened to purchase a fossil that may be largely fake. A lot of these things on the private market are mostly fake. Instead of being remembered as somebody who got duped into wasting their money on that.
Try blaming the dinosaurs.
Consider funding the science instead. You'll be remembered as somebody who had their heart in the right place and did what was right for the science. Who knows, maybe you'll even get a dinosaur named after you. It's happened before. That's a degree of immortality that you really can't buy in other ways. Anyhow, I hope that makes sense. Yeah. Anyhow, good stuff. Yeah. And greetings from Belgium, land of the Iguanodon. There you go, Starma 006. Good to have you here. Hello, hello. And Ms. Art Rule says, what do you recommend for someone who wants to study fish fossils? What do you mean what I recommend, Ms. Art Rules? Start studying fish fossils. You asking me about graduate programs or who studies fossil fish now, or what's your question? I don't understand. Yeah. Oh, and where are you going, Mini Pie? Okay, I'll see you later. Yeah. And volunteer at St. George. That's a good answer there. Nice shirt. Yeah. 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 And Lenina says, a very specific bucket list item, have a dinosaur named after me. It happens for a few people, yeah. A few very lucky people. I love how this post is blowing up right here. 98 likes so far. This is phenomenal. I love that people are reposting this. Whoop. language. 16 reposts. Thank you, everybody who's reposted this. This is brilliant. Good stuff. Yeah. Anyhow, excellent. Here, before I forget, let's do a quick Blue Sky post, and then we'll maybe jump into Caribbean paleontology here. I've got to end today's stream early, by the way, by 5 p.m. because I've got to put my last few things together and help get the house ready for us leaving. So let's do a quick screenshot here. Let's see if that's any good. That'll work. Yeah. Okay. Let's crop it. And let's see. Brilliant. There we go. That image right there. It's our last stream for over a week. As I get ready to visit Puerto Rico. First real vacation in like 5 years. Let's go. So we're talking about Caribbean fossil science. Importance of museums, and then holding a game of Who Wants to Be a Paleontologist. Doing some trivia with Who Wants to Be a Paleontologist. And give me a second here. Let me grab some strike-through text, because I don't know how to do this with hotkeys. Do that instead. Maybe that'll look better. It always looks weird here. Twitch.tv/Paleontologizing. We've got 8 too many characters. It's our last stream until the 14th. As I get ready for Puerto Rico. We can get rid of... No, we've got 3 O's there. Let's just say Caribbean fossils. There we go. Thank you, M. Oculus, for the 24 months. I appreciate that. Yeah. 3D printed Pachycephalosaurus and Allosaurus skull behind.
Welcome to another edition of Lifestyles of the Large and Extinct.
And other Jackie O, thanks for the follow. Welcome to Paleontologizing. Along with a few prints from scientific papers and a Puerto Rican, flag, among other accoutrements. There we go. Looks good.
Hold on to your butts.
Let's post it. Excellent. There we go. There is a link. And time is flying by. Holy cow, Claire. Yes, indeed. Good stuff. Oh, and we can send thank you letters to the city of St. George, to Mayor Michelle Randall. There we go. Yeah. I might be posting about that later on in the week. I don't know if we really have time today to do that, but yeah. Anyhow, we've got some other stuff to get to. By about 3:30 at the latest, we're going to start in with Who Wants to Be a Paleontologist? So let's jump into our feature presentation here. From Paleo World, Season 2, Episode 12. This is from, like, what, the mid-1990s? Title of the episode is Island of the Giant Rats. Some Caribbean paleontology here. Yeah.
On a tiny island in the...
And too many R's in Caribbean? Gosh darn it. Did I misspell that? Did I put 2 R's and 1 B? Goodness. There. Do the things that happen. When you're typing out posts and streaming on Twitch at the same time. All right. We got 3 seconds into the video. We'll see how much longer we get before we pause again.
On a tiny island in the Caribbean, there once lived a rat twice the size of a man.
Yeah. Ampleriza.
Its very existence is a nightmare and a mystery.
Is a capybara a nightmare? I mean... Yeah, what? We're talking about an animal that would have looked... You know? Would have looked like this. Or something like that, you know? Is that nightmarish? I know people who are afraid of rats. My grandmother happens to be very afraid of rats. We're not going to be looking at a lot of rats today, but we'll be looking at some great big rodents like this who tend to be much more cute. I know they've got to try and go for a dramatic angle here with the narration and everything. this is more what we're talking about here.
Keep them cool, I was going to say.
Oh.
Nice.
ですけど、みかん食べないんですかとか、柚子食べてる時も食べないんですかって聞かれます。この子たちはですね、
First tape years, now these guys. It's been a happy Mammal Week. Yeah, community time. Yes, indeed.
なので、よっぽどお腹空いてない限りはかじれない。
I usually don't like citrus fruits very much, so unless they're really hungry, it doesn't taste good.
なんか浮くなっていう感じで。
So I guess the oranges are just there for fun. But people really relate to that.
たち足がつきません。移動手段はね、泳ぎますので、泳ぐ瞬間。
Look at these guys.
ちびちゃんたち実はね、上から見てると分かりやすい。あの子おならしてるの分かります？ブクブクしたんです。この辺にちょっとね、可愛い瞬間よく見てないと見逃します。
I think it's just enrichment. They've got oranges around to play with.
この子たちの前
Makes things a little bit more interesting.
分かります。小さな指の間に水かきがついてます。一生懸命ね、今ここら辺の子たち足がつかないので、前足をね、一生懸命、いいですね、ちょっと写真を撮ってください。今しか見れませんよ。ラッキーです。すごい乗ってくれてます。ちょっとお写真みんな撮ってください。ラッキーですね。これなかなか
Orange on the head. There you go.
いいですね、長男の昆布くんです。サービスしてくれてます。
So it surfaced underneath an orange.
ラッキーですね。はい、本当にこんなシーンよくね見ますよ。よくさましたね。お写真撮れましたか？結構今よラッキーなすごいサービス。
Good stuff. Anyway, that's the kind of critter we're talking about. They're not nightmarish animals. They probably would have been adorable, you know?
Its very existence is a nightmare.
Oh,
and
baloney.
A mystery. The answer is guarded by a death trap, a murky chasm that leads into the unknown depths and unmapped past of the island of giant rats.
So this is not in Puerto Rico, but this is somewhere else in the Caribbean. I forget the name of the island. We'll find out. All rise for the Paleo World theme. Gotta love it. All rise for the anthem. This is clever, yeah.
One of the tiniest jewels in the Caribbean Sea is anguilla.
Anguilla?
Called the rock. It's a lump.
The rock. Anguilla, doesn't that mean eel in Spanish? Anguilla. Anguilla.
Of limestone covering just 34 square miles. Its long, thin shape accounts for its name. Anguilla is Spanish for eel.
Bingo. What did I tell you?
But perhaps the island is named for the wrong creature.
All right, it's not a rat. Like it's a different kind of
years ago, the king of Anguilla's jungle was a rat as big as a bear. Fascinated by this prehistoric mystery, 3 fossil hunters set out to find the giant rodent called Amblerrhiza.
Amblerrhiza. That's going to be a difficult one to What are you doing, sweetie pie? It's a difficult one to Google, so kudos to anybody who comes up with the correct spelling for it there. Sweetie Pie here was not satisfied with her tribute earlier. She has returned. She says, I want more. I want more. You know, one of these days what we should do... Yeah. We need to, like, get some treats and then put them on a thing like this and then have Sweetie Pie come up to them and eat them as a special offering to her. We'll have to do that one of these days. Maybe after I get back. There we go. Like this. Anywho, what do you think, Sweetie Pie? Would you like that? Would that be a fitting tribute for you? This kind of a deal, we could put treats on it for you. Put the camera nice down low like that. I think that'd be a lot of fun. We should probably do that, huh? You do not look amused. All right, well, let's make with the treats. Huh? Yeah. Okay. There we go. Look at that. Good stuff. Tasty, tasty. What do you think? Are you pleased with that offering? She's collecting next week's rent payment up front. I think she is, Casey's no art. I think she is. What do you think, Sweetie Pie? Is that what's going on? They're adding drag. Oh no, Dr. Tara, that's awful. I'm sorry to hear that. Oh. There we go. There we go. What do you think? You pleased with that? Yeah? Will you spare our village until the next full moon? Time will tell. No, you're just hanging around, aren't you? You're just hanging around, aren't you? Alright, let's get you some more. Let's get you some more. Here. There's 3 more. Have at them. She said 3. Just 3? What do I look like to you? Do I look like a cat who only eats 3 treats? She says, I demand the whole bag. I demand the whole factory. Yeah. Oh, spoken like a true landlord, huh? Yeah. Yeah. Oh, there she's like, oh, I guess I'll deign to eat this one. I suppose it is not beneath my dignity to eat that treat. Or perhaps this one too. Or what about one more? Oh. No, she saw something. Okay. He's taking off. That's okay. She knows her humans are leaving? I mean, maybe Casey Snowart. She's probably seen the suitcases upstairs. I bet you Ios and Lordy have already put their suitcases up there. Yeah. Anywho. I gotta see about making a setup for Sweetie Pie like this. I think that would be neat. Yeah. Anyway, let's get back to this.
Donald McFarland is a biologist from Claremont College in California.
Get the bigger bits there.
Ross McPhee is a mammologist from the American Museum of Natural History in New York.
New York City.
Claire Fleming is his research assistant. This is the end of a journey that began when two scientists each read of an ancient rodent almost 1,000 times bigger than a modern rat. Both wondered how an animal so large could thrive on an island so small.
Well, that's the key to it. They got so big because the island is so small. We'll talk about that in a minute.
And why it finally disappeared.
There is a great deal of romance to paleontology, and to hear about a rodent that was the size of a bear interested me greatly. I had to go and find it for myself.
In the Caribbean, most fossils have been worn away by sun and rain,
A lot bigger in the past.
except
That's also
those
true now,
sheltered in caves. Yet if there were fossils here, the sea got to them first. A farmer suggested searching near a large pitchapple tree rooted above a damp cave.
And Charlie's Dragon says more like 100 times the size of a modern rat, not 1,000. I think they're probably talking about weight rather than linear dimensions, but
the growth was overgrown.
Just a guess.
But they found the tree by its dark green leaves. Pitchapple Hole is a natural trap 70 feet deep. No one knew what lay down there. Only that if a creature fell in, there was no way out.
This is, again, what we call a natural trap. And so there are lots of examples of these, actually. I don't know about lots of examples, but I can think of at least one example of this. Let me find it in one of my books over here. Should be in this one. By Kirk Johnson and Ray Troll, Cruising the Fossil Freeway. In Wyoming, there's an example of this. Natural Trap Cave is a place containing the fossils of thousands upon thousands of mammals from the Cenozoic. Here is the grate over the surface to prevent anyone from falling in unintentionally. Here is a lovely illustration by Ray Troll. 40,000 mammals can be wrong. Oh boy. They didn't all fall in at once, obviously. This would have been over decades, centuries, probably over millennia, or even tens of thousands of years. But, yeah, good stuff. Natural Trap Cave in Wyoming. The book is Cruising the Fossil Freeway by Kirk Johnson and Ray Troll. Kind of an indispensable book to have if you're interested in paleontology here in North America. It's good stuff. It's a classic, a modern classic. And is La Brea considered a natural trap too? It is, Miss Capri Cal. Yes, indeed. Yeah. Different kind of trap. This is just a, like, fallen-in trap. La Brea is like you stop there to drink and you get stuck in that liquid asphalt. That mixture of petroleum and sand that forms a sticky tar. There's a few other examples too. it could very well be that the mammoth site What a beautiful graph there, It's a Vase. Thanks for the follow. Welcome to Paleontologizing. Good to have you here. This place here.
There we go. Excellent. All right, let's hit it. Resume scroll. There we go. And the asphalt stream.
South Dakota.
Thank you, Neolithic fool. I really appreciate you saying so. I didn't really have time to check out the VOD for that. It was such a long drive afterward. Make sure the car's locked. Good. Yeah, it was such a long drive after that. I had about 6 or 7 hours of driving.
The mammal site, or the mammoth site.
Looks like we might have some natural
this is a building
graveyard
built.
For these animals. This is where they fell. This is where they died. This is where they still are 26,000 years later. Pretty cool.
Like the museum in St. George or like Dinosaur National Monument, this building was erected over this fossil site to protect it and provide a place for scientists to actively study these fossils, protected from the elements, and for the general public to enjoy that.
Cool. Yeah. Very, very neat. Yeah.
This is what happens when you ignore the yellow tape and cones. It's double nickel. Yeah.
Shoot, I did a stream from there last summer. It was a lot of fun. Yeah, very, very cool. So let me point out some of these different bones so that you can see them. Again, I work on dinosaurs. I'm not super familiar with mammalian osteology, with their bones, but I can pick out a few of them for you. The tusks are obviously, they're the most obvious. They're the easiest to pick out. But there are some mandibles, and you can see those big, flat, kind of crushing molars there.
It's hard to see without a zoom here, but yeah.
I see some limb bones. I see some hip bones down there. Those are the ilia.
Yeah, those big bowl-shaped ones.
Another mammoth there.
Anywho, the thing about the mammoth site is that it's probably also a natural trap. Let's see here.
Experience America's greatest Ice Age treasure right here in Hot Springs, South Dakota, the Mammoth Site, featuring the fossils of 55 Columbian and woolly mammoths. I'm intrigued.
So anyway, look at my VOD if you want a tour of the whole thing with me, but this is also a great little video about this too. Very concise here. And I'm hoping they'll talk a little bit about the formation.
I'm the chief investigator here at the Mammoth Site, Dr. Eggenbrod, who has been here since the beginnings. Take us back to 1974. What happened and how did you guys find this?
Okay, there was a local contractor named Phil Anderson. He was developing some area here in the southern portion of the city. His bulldozer operator, George Hansen, had been taking off the top of a hill. There's a red ball back up here on our rafters to show you where the hill was. He looked behind him and they had big bones sticking out of the ground every which direction. He called Phil and Phil said, this may be important. Let's see if somebody wants to get involved.
Just maybe. So let me ask you a very basic question. In the literature it says over 55, which now you've just discovered some more this summer, but it says 55 Columbian and woolly mammoths.
55 Columbian and woolly, but 3 of them are woolies and the rest of them are Columbian.
What does that mean?
That means that we've got the Arctic version of the mammoth and the temperate version of the mammoth.
So which is Arctic?
The woolly.
The woolly, okay.
And you're seeing a nearly complete skeleton of a mammoth.
That's pretty rare, isn't it?
It's pretty rare, especially laid out for you like this. Entire vertebral column, pelvis, hind legs still attached, shoulder blades, front legs.
So one of the odd things is that every single one of these is male. I don't think there's a single female mammoth there, as far as I know. there's a transcript I can try and search for where they talk about that.
There we go. Right up to the first neck vertebra.
So why do you think this site out of Hot Springs? I mean, why are there so many fossils right here? Any ideas?
I think it was a good geologic, hydrologic, natural trap. And
Natural trap, like we were talking about.
Of young male mammoths, which is a little bit almost embarrassingly too close to our own species' young male behavior. They're getting into dumb places, and this one they couldn't get out.
So the thought is that this was, it's like a deep portion of a pool where these young male mammoths were hanging out, getting up to no good, and then falling in. They'd get stuck. They would die. Maybe this happens once every 10 years or something like that, but it just selects for mostly young male mammoths. It's a trap. Exactly, Taxdu, yeah. Yeah. I wonder if there's an illustration of what this may have looked like, but I think it's basically kind of like a sinkhole that was submerged in water. I don't know if we have a graphical representation of this. This is on Facebook. We'll see if we can get this to work. Cross your fingers. It would help if the sound was on. Come on, Facebook. Shouldn't be muted. Maybe you have to log in before they enable sound or something. Anyway. I can't stand Facebook. Anywho, it's basically like a big sinkhole covered with water. Male mammoths were the only ones who were, I don't know, among modern elephants, it's young males are the ones who wander. And then eventually they link up with like a female-led herd. Elephants are matriarchal nowadays. It's almost certainly the same thing with Columbian and probably woolly mammoths too. And so the only ones who are really wandering around getting into trouble, being in places where they shouldn't be, are young males, and it seems to be what happened here. So anywho, yeah. And no, the tab wasn't muted, Becca Paintmore. It's just, I think it's a Facebook thing. Anywho, yeah. And can you mention Bernassar? Yeah, so Bernassar is no longer thought to be a natural trap, Starma. We've talked about it many, many times, and we will talk about it again in the future when we talk with Filippo Bertozzo, who is, I think, working on some of those iguanodon specimens. But Bernassar is no longer thought to be a natural trap, I don't think. It's thought to be maybe like a point bar or something in an ancient river. I think that's the idea, yeah. Anyway, let's continue with our giant Neogene rodents here.
Others had come here, but none dared risk the fate of the curious. McFarlane has an advantage. He not only knows caves, he knows how to climb down into them.
Oh. Sure, Starman, yeah. It comes up quite a bit.
No problem.
I'll get you down. Yeah. Sure? In fact, we can even talk about it a little bit right now if you really want to, and then we'll get back to this. The difference between like a natural trap and other ways that fossils can accumulate.
Bernissar, 1878. "I've struck gold," shouted a miner, 322 meters underground, when he discovered a tree trunk filled with glittering ore. In reality, they were bones encrusted with pyrite, a sparkling gold-colored mineral known as fool's gold. A telegram was quickly sent to the Royal Belgian Natural History Museum. The result was 3 exciting years of excavation and the discovery of around 30 dinosaur skeletons, many almost intact.
Yeah, some of them they were probably absolutely complete at the time of burial, if not at the time of discovery. There's still more down there too. As I understand it, having spoken with some people who have worked in or near there, I think the mine is now privately owned and it's been flooded. So I don't know what happened. It is, it's super, super deep. 322 meters below the surface. And that might be below the water table here. But something happened and it's now all flooded up with water. They would have to drain the entire thing if they ever want to go back down there and try and find more iguanodon. But there definitely will be more down there. They didn't get everything there was to get.
Of around 30 dinosaur skeletons, many almost intact.
Yeah.
600 blocks of fossils protected in plaster were transported to Brussels and set up in a former chapel whose high ceiling was perfect for the task of solving the giant 3D puzzle. It was a major discovery for paleontology. For the first time, complete skeletons could show us what dinosaurs actually looked like.
Prior to this, there were barely any complete dinosaur skeletons. There were a few. There were Archaeopteryx, although Archaeopteryx wasn't recognized as a dinosaur quite yet. Compsognathus was before this as well, if I remember correctly. But these were the first large, complete dinosaur skeletons ever found. And this was huge. It helped revolutionize our understanding of iguanodon, for instance. Prior to that, iguanodon had been thought to look like this. Like a giant, upright, almost like elephantine lizard or something. Different limb gait than lizards. People like Richard Owen and Gideon Mantell realized that, but anyway, after that, the picture of iguanodon was significantly updated to look something more like this. Yeah. More like this right here. Yes, yeah. Get this one to embiggen. There we go. Like that. And nowadays we recognize that iguanodon would have looked more like this. Lovely model of iguanodon from PNSO. They do good work. Yeah. So yeah. Anywho.
The shape of their teeth tells us that they were plant eaters. Their pointed horn-covered thumbs were a powerful defense. And their spine was reinforced by bony tendons which connected the vertebrae. Now we know they normally walked on 4 legs. However, the skeletons that were originally mounted in this upright biped position are too fragile to be remounted. They're still the largest and best preserved collection of iguanodons in the world.
By far, yeah. And what's kind of funny is that the original English iguanodon, many of those are no longer considered iguanodon. They've been renamed. They're different kinds of iguanodont from the same family, but they're not iguanodon. They're Mantellosaurus and Oenodon and so on and so forth. There's a bunch of different taxa nowadays. They're no longer considered part of genus Iguanodon. So yeah.
They are the stars of our museum.
Yeah. Anywho, good stuff. I'll give you a link to that. Just a brief little thing. So there's so many of those Iguanodon skeletons at Bernissar. it was once thought that they all got washed in together during, or that they fell into a ravine or something like that. And many of them are complete like this. It's now thought that maybe many of them died in a flash flood, and then their bodies accumulated on like a point bar or something like that in a river. So like a shallow spot in a river, like a big log jam. It's possible, but yeah. In fact, I wonder if I can find you a citation here. Let's see. Further attempts to reopen the mine were hindered by financial problems and were stopped altogether in 1921 when the mine flooded. Oh boy. Yeah. I don't know if I'll be able to find a citation, actually, for the idea that they didn't fall into a ravine. Here. But yeah, it's probably not a natural trap, as I understand it. Here's the old idea. Let's see. It seems that 31 fully grown adults had fallen down a deep ravine during Cretaceous times and had drowned as it filled with water and mud. I don't think this is the consensus view any longer. But we can ask Filippo when we talk to him on stream at some point. Starman says, I thought they got stuck in a tar pit? No, I don't think anybody thinks that. At least I've never heard that idea suggested. But once again, we can talk to Filippo when we interview him at some point. Yeah, maybe in like mid-July. Let's continue.
Sure, we're gonna find some ambly.
So yeah, so that's different. That's sometimes you get what we call like a channel lag deposit. So maybe a bunch of critters do die in a river crossing or something like that. But I'm trying to find you a good figure to explain this concept, and so many of these are just lousy. Yeah, so it's basically a point in the river where, yeah, things slow down, the river gets kind of slower and more gentle, you've got particles falling out of suspension. It's where the river becomes less energetic. There's less force bringing stuff along. And as the water slows, particles fall out of suspension, and anything that might be carried by the river, like say an iguanodon carcass, that can start to sink. It might even get stuck on like a sandbar or something like that. So we can find evidence of these, not just find evidence of them, find channel lags like this, a channel deposit, where you get big particles like that. Rocks and stuff like that have fallen out of suspension at that quiet part of the river. Rocks, bones, bits of plants, coprolites, all kinds of stuff. Everything that the river was carrying along. It kind of falls out of suspension there and it gets preserved. We call this a channel lag. That might be an explanation for why there's so many iguanodon fossils there. So different from a natural trap. where, you know, you might literally have a cave with an opening at the top and critters fall in. Like here in Wyoming at Natural Trap Cave, or here on the island of Anguilla in the Caribbean. Does that make sense? Yeah. Anyhow. Mauricio's got another question. About a year ago, I asked you about Stegosaurus and the scales. You mean plates? Plates on Stegosaurus? You were in the process of releasing a paper and couldn't talk much about your theory about the plates. Can you speak about it now? No, I still can't. I'm sorry. That's still in the works. Yeah. Still in the works. Sorry. I still have to keep that under wraps for now. Sorry. We're gonna get back into this at the moment. And I'm also gonna have a quick bite to eat.
The chances are good. We didn't finish it off before.
Okay, I think we're ready.
Right?
Without an expert along, no one would try this. One slip could be fatal. If the fall didn't kill you, time would. The descent is such an ordeal that no one will go back up till the end of the day, 12 hours away.
You want to minimize your trips up and down in a place like this.
The fossil hunters are working a cold trail. The giant rat Amblerisa hasn't been tracked in half a century. Pitchapple Hole began as a cavern. For centuries, groundwater slowly hollowed out the limestone. Inevitably, the roof fell in, turning the cave into a pit and a trap.
You bringing another bucket, Don?
There you go, Madam 33, yeah.
Thanks. A little pocket of bone in here underneath all of this breakdown.
A bit deeper than the other stuff.
Right. So it's another place where we can expect to find a few bones. Amblerisa. Clearly, these animals were in here before this roof collapsed.
Iguana.
The humidity reaches 90%, and the temperature passes 90 degrees. The cave is swarming with mosquitoes, sandflies, and the stench of bat guano.
Sounds like a lovely place to work. Sign me up, you know?
Pitchapple Hole may once have been a maze of grottos, but after the roof fell in, earth gradually heaped up, and any passages out were sealed off.
There's a tooth.
The cave is now a dead end. Within hours, the fossil hunters hit rock. Under the rock, they may find their quarry, a creature trapped down here long ago, covered over time by earth, and shielded from erosion ever since. The rocks are too heavy to lift. McFarlane will try to blast them apart.
Explosives.
For the sake of any fossils, as well as the fossil hunters, he uses a small amount of explosive.
Wow, and look at that. Look what they found. I'm kidding. That's really goofy the way that they edited that. Let's see that again. So that's a reconstructed skeleton. Yeah.
Underneath the rock, the fossil hunters have struck pay dirt. The story of the giant rat begins with two other creatures. A century ago, phosphate was mined here for fertilizer. It was found in the guano of birds and bats. And guano was found in caves. In 1868, a Philadelphia manufacturer named Henry Waters received a shipment of phosphate from Anguilla.
Yeah.
Amid the guano, Waters found unexpected cargo. Fossils. Paleontologist Edward Drinker Cope was astounded. The bones were the remains of a rat. A 300-pound rat. Cope eventually received a hoard of bones from Anguilla. Yet he never figured out how such a large creature thrived on such a small island, or why it finally disappeared.
Now we've got a much better understanding of that. But there's something else to understand, and something that kind of gets into, like, geopolitics a little bit. I wonder if I can find you a brief video to describe this. During the, here we go. From Minute Earth, this should be good. Much of the race to, like, claim and seize small islands in the late 19th and early 20th century is because of guano, because of bird and bat poop. It's, yeah. Here. Let's take a look at this.
No. And by discovering and this and this and that have in common. Well, they're all part of this, the United States. Now, I know I'll get plenty of comments like these, and for that I'm sorry, but this is going to be another one of those episodes, the America-centric ones. Now, what really binds these islands together is that they're all part of the US because of this, bird poop. In the 1700s, everyone was farmers. At the time, the world population was starting to increase faster and faster, but the share of people working in farming was staying roughly the same. All around the world, the soil was losing its nutrients from centuries of farming, so growing was becoming less efficient. That was all until a guy named Alexander von Humboldt went to Peru and discovered guano. And by discovered, we mean he saw natives doing something and decided he invented it. Now, sidebar. Guano.
I think Alexander Humboldt might be the same guy that the Humboldt squid is named after, too. Someone can look that up if they'd like to. But I think it's probably the same guy.
Equals bird poop. According to the beginning of every bad valediction speech in history, the Merriam-Webster dictionary defines guano as a fertilizer containing the accumulated excrement of seabirds or bats. This guano was a miracle fertilizer thanks to its high nitrogen content, and the world became crazy about it. By the 1850s, guano was selling in the US for as much as $75 per pound. That's almost a third the cost of silver. People were making their fortunes by importing bird poop, and the market in the US was dominated by only a few key players who spiked up prices. So, William Henry Seward, the same guy who bought Alaska, introduced a bill in the Senate which would allow any US citizen to claim any uninhabited island for the US as long as it had guano. Guano mania continued. Businessmen went all around the world to find remote, unclaimed islands with guano, and once they did, these islands were added to the US no matter where they were. This is how the country ended up with places like Howland Island, a 1.5-mile long piece of land in the South Pacific, and Kingman Reef, a gathering of shells reaching no more than 3 feet out of the water. So the question was, how do you fit these places into the US?
So, yeah, and there are a number of other places like this too. This kind of gets into when the United States really became an empire in like the early 20th century, all of these different territories that the US has nowadays. Some of them were acquired later, like after World War II, but places like Guam, places like I think Tinian, the Marianas Islands, the Philippines used to be a US held territory. after the Spanish-American War. Same with Puerto Rico, where I'm going next week. All of these different like island holdings that the U.S. has or had are part of this whole like imperialist milieu. This is all kind of how that came to be. Why when you look at a map of U.S. territories, there's a whole bunch of them around the world. So these ones in blue right here, all of those are U.S. holdings. Or they were at one time or another. Let's see. Territories of the United States. This should be a good figure. Okay. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of these all around the world. Mariana Islands, Guam, Palau, American Samoa, Howland Island, like you just saw there, Midway Atoll, Puerto Rico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. Puerto Rico is an unincorporated, organized territory with Commonwealth status, which means that the people who live there do not receive all the benefits of U.S. citizenship, even though they are legally citizens. I don't think they get to vote in most U.S. elections. There's a number of other rights and privileges which they don't enjoy despite being American citizens. So a territory it's technically part of the United States, but it's not a state. It's in this kind of like in-between limbo sort of status. It really is buck wild, Becca Paynemore. It really is. Yeah. And they deserve the right to vote. That is absurd. I mean, they say that the American Revolution was fought under the slogan, no taxation without representation. People in Puerto Rico absolutely get taxed, and they do not get represented in the House of Representatives or in the Senate. I don't think they even get to vote for president. So yeah, it's bonkers. It really is. Anyhow, so how do you fit places like this into the U.S. if they're guano islands or if they're other territories? I think they're going to talk about the concept of a territory here.
3 feet out of the water. So the question was, how do you fit these places into the US? These islands were not close to the US. Some were over 4,000 miles away from the mainland.
Shoot.
It didn't make sense to add them as states. Most had no permanent population. It didn't even make sense to add them as territories. The US had to come up with an entirely new classification of land just for these guano islands.
So we're not talking about territories here specifically, but we're talking about guano because that factors into what we're talking about with Amblerrhiza on the island of Anguilla, those cool fossils of their drinker cope, all of that. That's why we're talking about this.
The insular areas. Any insular area of the United States was considered officially, by the federal government, a non-integral part of the United States. They had no path to statehood and no independent government. In fact, by law, the US didn't even consider these areas as land. They were ships.
What? Unsinkable aircraft carriers, I guess. Oh boy.
Any crimes committed on these guano islands were prosecuted under US maritime law. The only real benefit of these islands being part of the US was that if another country tried to claim these islands, the US military would come knocking. As it turned out, most islands claimed ended up being pretty useless for guano mining. Many were like Palmyra Atoll, too wet for guano to dry into useful fertilizer. But they weren't completely useless. They gave the US an enormous exclusive economic zone. You see, these zones extend 200 miles out from the territory of any country, and within the EEZ, the owning country has exclusive rights to fishing, drilling, and all other economic activity. Still today, Americans have these exclusive rights all around the world thanks to bird poop. The most fascinating part of the Guano Islands Act is that it is still in place today. You can still go and add an island to the US if it has bird poop to mine. Just 20 years ago, an American came across Navassa Island between Haiti and Jamaica, and there was guano, so he put in an application to the Department of the Interior to claim it. They, however, swiftly rejected the claim since they claimed it was already claimed a century earlier. But that makes sense, since today there are no known islands worldwide that aren't already claimed by countries. But that doesn't mean there will never be. Small volcanic islands appear all the time, and so, if the time is right, you could use this antiquated law to add your small bit of rock to these United States.
Yeah. Maybe spark a global war in the process. Yeah. Here. Here's one from SciShow about this too. I feel like this is
Humans have prized a lot of animals for making products that we find beautiful or useful. Silkworms for their silk, whales for their blubber, sheep for their wool. But in the mid-1800s, a bird called the guano cormorant was considered the most valuable in the world. It was nicknamed the billion-dollar bird because its poop, or guano, was an amazing fertilizer. At the beginning of the 19th century, populations were exploding and all of those people needed to eat. Large-scale agriculture had been booming for a few hundred years and soils were quickly getting depleted of nutrients. Enter Alexander von Humboldt, European explorer extraordinaire.
which I'm pretty sure the Humboldt squid is named after him. Again, let's look that up real quick. And a bunch of other critters too. Humboldt squid. Here we go.
To the global and serious game of paleontology.
McLovin, ya boy. Hey, thanks for the follow. Welcome to Paleontologizing. I'm not seeing the word Alexander here. Maybe it's not named after him. Etymology of Humboldt squid. It's named from the Humboldt Current. Yeah. Which is named after the German naturalist Alexander von Humboldt. There we go. I knew it. Humboldt County might also be named for him too, Dr. Morbius. Although that's, if we're talking about the same Humboldt County, that's here in California. That, yeah, it might not be named. It might be a different Humboldt. Anyhow.
Agriculture had been booming for a few hundred years, and soils were quickly getting depleted of nutrients. Enter Alexander von Humboldt, European explorer extraordinaire. While exploring the coast of Peru in 1802, von Humboldt came across workers unloading a shipment of guano from the Chincha Islands. Indigenous cultures in the area had been using the guano on these islands as a source of fertilizer for hundreds of years, so von Humboldt definitely did not discover guano. But like any good explorer, he took a sample of it back with him to Europe. And at the time, people didn't know much about the science of fertilizers. Farmers recognized that adding things like ground up bones, ash, or feces to soil helped plants grow, but scientists weren't sure why this worked. We now know the answer is elementary. Actually elementary, like literally it's elements that are involved. These materials have a lot of nitrogen, phosphorus and other elements that help plants grow. Plants use nitrogen to make important proteins and pigments like chlorophyll, which let them absorb sunlight and do photosynthesis and not die. Phosphorus is needed to make DNA and RNA, as well as cell membranes and the molecules that all living things use to make and store energy. Without these elements, plants can't make more cells or even function with the cells they have. But even if scientists had known this at the time, it wouldn't have helped them very much. There just weren't many good sources of nitrogen and phosphorus that plants could use. There's plenty of nitrogen in the air, of course, but plants can't just suck it in like carbon dioxide. They usually rely on
some plants can, I think. Plants that are really good at nitrogen fixing. I think peanuts do this. But oftentimes they need like a symbiotic relationship with another organism, like a fungus or a bacterium that fixes the nitrogen. Yeah. Anyhow.
the air, of course, but plants can't just suck it in like carbon dioxide. They usually rely on bacteria in the soil to convert or fix the nitrogen into a different form, like nitrate or ammonium that they can actually use. If the soil has been exhausted of these chemicals, it's really hard to grow crops, which brings us back to the Chincha Islands. Turns out, bird guano is amazingly rich in these sources of fixed nitrogen and phosphorus. In fact, it's even better than cow dung or horse dung. Cows and horses only eat plants, but guanay cormorants feast almost entirely on anchovy-like fish. That protein-rich diet means lots of nitrogen eventually shows up in their poop. Plus, bird poop is really poop and pee combined, so that's extra nitrogen and phosphorus that other animal dung leaves out. As for why this natural fertilizer could just pile up, thank the dry climate of coastal Peru. In most of the world, bird poop will simply get washed away. But ocean currents from Antarctica ensure it almost never rains on the islands, allowing guano to harden, locking in layer upon layer upon layer of nitrate phosphate goodness. So when word finally reached Europe that von Humboldt had potentially found a great new source of fertilizer, they went crazy for it. Almost immediately, the Peruvian government started huge mining operations, selling the guano to any country that wanted it. Other countries got involved too. In 1856, the United States even went so far as to pass the Guano Islands Act, which allowed American citizens to claim any island they wished, as long as it had guano on it and wasn't already claimed by another country. Guano miners came from all over the world harvesting this seemingly limitless resource. But while the guano boom was great for agriculture, it was bad news for the guanay cormorant and other seabirds that called the islands home. Miners ate the birds and their eggs, which was not really smart when you think about it, and destroyed their habitat to the point that their populations began to fall. By the
it's almost literally killing the goose that lays the golden eggs, you know? It's wiping out the birds that are producing this extraordinarily valuable resource at the time. Again, just extraordinarily short-sighted
about it, and destroyed their habitat to the point that their populations began to fall. By the 1870s, most of the guano on these islands had already been mined. A few decades later, Peru started protecting the remaining cormorants. It's one of the first examples of a government stepping in to protect a natural resource. But for the guano industry, it was too late. With fewer droppings to mine and the discovery of artificial fertilizer, the guano boom went bust. German chemist Fritz Haber had figured out how to fix nitrogen from the air and turn it into ammonia, which could in turn be used to develop synthetic fertilizers. These worked just as well, if not better, than guano. And now we've been using these fertilizers for decades to feed billions of people. But guano might not have outlived its usefulness just yet. Recently, the rise of organic farming has increased demand for high-quality organic fertilizer, and guano is one of the best.
And that also potentially leads to the destruction of things like caves and, you know, these islands. If people are again going after guano in the name of organic agriculture, that can also drive species into extinction. I got a lot of problems with organic agriculture. Don't get me started, but yeah. Anyhow, Bifur Grace says, considering the total time of the universe's current existence, could dinosaurs have spawned on other planets simultaneously to Earth? Are the odds to that astronomical? I'd say the odds of that are absolutely zero. Dinosaurs, by definition, are from Earth. There could be other creatures that maybe by happenstance might happen to look very, very similar, but they would not be dinosaurs. In the same way that crocodiles and alligators are not dinosaurs, because they didn't descend from a dinosaur ancestor. Yeah, it's... in order to be a dinosaur, you have to have evolved from the very first dinosaur. I'm glad you brought up this question, Bifur Grace. Yeah. Yeah. It's all about lineage, like Claire's saying there. Exactly. So, what is a dinosaur and what isn't? It's a handy chart right here. Doesn't matter how much you might look like a dinosaur, you're not a dinosaur unless you evolved, unless you can trace your ancestry back to the first dinosaur. Which would have been a critter probably a lot like Eoraptor, but earlier, would have lived about 240 million years ago. That's why birds are dinosaurs, but alligators and crocodiles are not. Does that make sense? Yeah. So the literal family tree of Earth life. There you go, Scorch Hellfire. Yeah. Yeah. And by her grace says, but suppose some other Earth planet is having similar occurrences. There could, so you're, look, I'm not a cosmologist, I'm not an astronomer or an astrophysicist, but let's just assume for a second that there is an extraordinarily Earth-like planet somewhere out in our universe, and say there are creatures on that planet that would look to us exactly like dinosaurs. By definition, they would not be dinosaurs, and they can't be, because they didn't evolve from this Earth dinosaur ancestor. Does that make sense? Dinosaur is a very specific thing. It's not a vibe, it's not a hazy grab bag sort of term. A dinosauria it's specific, you know? So yeah. We would have to classify critters from another planet as something else. They would not be dinosaurs by definition. Does that make sense? Yeah. And Reiko says species are not defined morphologically. That's right, not based on their shape or their appearance or other aspects of them. We literally define what is what based on what it evolved from, where it came from, you know? So, like, that's why... That's why this creature right here is not a snake. It's what we call a legless lizard. So this is, there have been many, many times where different branches of the lizard family tree have evolved to lose their limbs. So this might look like a snake, but it is by definition not a snake, because it didn't evolve from that earliest snake ancestor. It's from a different part on the reptile family tree, different part on the lizard family tree. And Compy, thank you for the follow. Welcome to Paleontologizing.
Help me.
Good to have you here. Yeah, and there are some clues too that you can see in legless lizards. They have eyes that can blink. They have ear holes, and true snakes don't have ear holes. These are clues to them having a different evolutionary past than true snakes do. So they've got a different ancestry. They're not actually snakes. Does that make sense? Yeah. Anywho, yeah. So maybe far out there in the vast expanse of the universe, maybe there is some other planet where life has evolved in a similar trajectory to that on Earth, and maybe there are creatures that would look kind of like dinosaurs. But they could never be dinosaurs, because that term that we use, dinosaur, is a very specific meaning, and that's only for creatures that evolved here on Earth. And it's a very specific clade, so it's the ancestor and all of its descendants. That's what dinosaurs are. Anything outside of that is not a dinosaur and can't be. Does that make sense? Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. And there you go, Petrodactylus. Yeah, speaking of legless lizards. Yeah, legless lizards have super long tails, whereas true snakes don't. True snakes, their body actually extends, so they're like dorsal series of vertebrae, that's super long. Legless lizards have got a short body and a super long tail. Snakes just have a super long body and a short tail. There are differences between the different vertebrae too. You can distinguish the tail from the body in a snake if you look inside, if you look at the structure of the bones and everything. It's a different developmental process too. So anywho, I don't want to get too bogged down in that right now. But yeah. And hi, you from Reunion Island. Karanea too. Are you actually from Reunion Island? Very cool. Welcome to Paleontologizing. And Joninyan says fake sores. Yeah, there are a lot of other critters that we had here on our very own planet that might look very much like dinosaurs. Things like Postasuchus here not a dinosaur. This is a relative of crocodilians. It might look dinosaur-y to the untrained eye. It is not a dinosaur. Same with all of the marine reptiles. All these big ocean-going reptiles from the age of dinosaurs. When dinosaurs are on land, these guys are swimming around in the sea. None of these are dinosaurs. They're from other different branches of the reptile family tree. So mosasaurs like this are actually a kind of lizard. Things like Dacosaurus are actually a kind of crocodile relative. Things like plesiosaurs, both long-necked and short-necked. We're still kind of figuring out where they belong on the reptile family tree, but they're definitely not dinosaurs. Same with the ichthyosaurs. Yeah, dinosaurs are a very specific kind of critter, and they're defined based on their ancestry, just like all living things are. When scientists are classifying living things, when we say that two living things are actually related to each other, we mean that in a literal sense. That they are literally related, that they share a common ancestor. In the same way that you're related to your siblings, or your cousins. You're closer to your siblings, more closely related to your siblings than you are to your cousins. Because you've got the same parents as your siblings. Whereas you've got the same grandparents as your cousins. You've got to go back further in time to where you share a common ancestor that you spring from. Does that make sense? Yeah. And Kenny H.Y. says, do we still have aquatic lizards like those? We don't. No, the mosasaurs are extinct. They died out at the same time that the non-bird dinosaurs did, at the end of the Cretaceous. But there are a few lizards that are very good at swimming today. Like monitor lizards. So there is always a chance that we could have true marine lizards again. Non-snake marine lizards, I hasten to add. Yeah, some of these guys, they love swimming around. So this is not too different from what the ancestor of the mosasaurs would have looked like. And to this day, they're still very good at swimming. They've got a very, almost crocodile-like mode of swimming, where they're undulating that tail horizontally in the water. They're really good at it. Yeah. And then, of course, we have sea snakes, too. Yeah. Which, strictly speaking, are a kind of lizard. All snakes are a kind of lizard. Because snakes evolved from lizards, they therefore are lizards. Again, we said classification is based on ancestry.
Allosaurus, ancient predecessor of the Tyrannosaurus.
It's Rise TV. Thanks for the 5 months of support.
Giant meat eater with long dagger-like teeth.
So we do have marine lizards today, but they all happen to be snakes. Sea snakes are, strictly speaking, a kind of lizard. Pretty cool, right? Anyway. It's Rise. Thank you so much for your ongoing support. 5 months. I appreciate it. Thanks for the prime. Anywho, we were talking about bat guano and stuff. Oh, because we were talking about Caribbean fossils here. And these were first discovered because of guano.
A century ago, phosphate was mined here for fertilizer. It was found in the guano of birds and bats. And guano was found in caves.
I'm glad you're here,
in 1868, a Philadelphia manufacturer named Henry Waters received a shipment of phosphate from Anguilla.
And Stranger Than One, thank you for the follow. Welcome to Paleontologizing. It's good to have you here. Thanks for joining us. And Compy says, hello, greetings from Puerto Rico. Heard Caribbean fossils and just had to listen in. Though I've always thought Puerto Rico never had dinosaur bones on it, just marine life. You're correct about that. There's no Mesozoic dinosaur fossils from Puerto Rico. You might get really lucky and find some bird fossils, but bird fossils tend to be very rare. But in other islands in the Caribbean, like Anguilla, you do get cool fossils like this. We're talking about this now because I'm going to be visiting Puerto Rico. I'm going to be there all next week. I'm doing a little stream hiatus. My family is from Puerto Rico originally on my dad's side. So we're going to be looking at, when I'm there, I'm going to be investigating some family history a little bit, but mostly just visiting the island, looking at local wildlife, doing some birding and herping and all kinds of cool stuff. It's, oh man, I can't wait. So, yeah, Copy, it's good to have you here. Thanks for joining us. Bienvenidos a Paleontologizing. Good stuff. Let's continue here.
Waters received a shipment of phosphate from Anguilla. Amid the guano, Waters found unexpected cargo.
Compsognathus.
Fossils.
Nice. Here's Cope.
Paleontologist Edward Drinker Cope was astounded. The bones were the remains of a rat. A 300-pound rat. Cope eventually received a hoard of bones from Anguilla. Yet he never figured out how such a large creature thrived on such a small island, or why it finally disappeared. Minutes after blasting through rock, the fossil hunters at last find what they've come for.
Oh! Oh my God! Head of a femur.
Down. And a large one, too.
And this looks like it might be another piece. It's freshly bruised.
Did they say femur?
Where was it?
Right here.
Excellent. See, we really do find things. And even Dawn can tell the difference between a goat and an Amblyrhiza.
Under the rock lay the bones of the giant rat, Amblyrhiza.
Not a true rat.
Dozens of fossils were found, except the most important.
In the case of Amblyrhiza, the biggest single part we're missing is the skull. And since we only have skull bits, it's been very hard to try and piece together where Amblyrhiza belongs in regard to other rodents in its particular evolutionary group. Let's consider the position of Amblyrhiza within the group known as New World rodents. They include species like the capybara, chinchilla, guinea pig, and many others. But according to the fossil evidence, we think that the line that gave rise to Amblyrhiza separated at a very early point, maybe 30 million years ago, from the other rodents.
Which is, I think, been called into dispute recently. I want to say they're closer to capybara or even to chinchillas nowadays. Amblyrhiza, the blunt-toothed giant hutia. I think it's no longer considered to be a hutia. Yeah. Let's see here. Taxonomy. Amblyrhiza is currently considered to be a close relative to Elasmodontomes obliquus, a smaller yet similar rodent found in quaternary deposits of Puerto Rico. Ah, Elasmodontomes. The plate-toothed giant hutia. Very cool. Nice. Late Holocene extinction of Puerto Rican native land mammals. I'm gonna have to grab this paper and read it while I'm on my trip. A large 13 kilos. It's an animal that would have weighed about 30 pounds. Heptaxodontid rodent, Elasmodontomes obliquus. appears to have survived for over 2,000 years after Amerindian colonization, suggesting that at least some large West Indian mammals became extinct in protracted pre-European Sitzkrieg-style events rather than Blitzkrieg-style overkill. Interesting. Let's see if we can find an illustration of this critter. There we go. Yeah, it kind of looks like, it's being portrayed here like a capybara, especially in this illustration. Here it looks a little bit more like a nutria or something. But some kind of big rodenty guy. Very cool. And there is the skull right there, which looks a lot like a capybara skull. Yeah, nice. Very cool. It reminds me too of a Pacarana. This critter right here.
Yeah, basta. Do the thing. Yeah, now we're talking.
Oh, great.
Oh.
Guinea pig's like alcohol.
He's a guinea pig. I thought he was a monkey.
It's a rodent. So this is called a Pacarana. And they're famous for bathing.
Oh yeah.
You've probably seen, well, we have some alerts with this, but here we go. So they bathe themselves, and it almost looks like they're taking a shower or something. Use their little hands, doing their fur like this. Yeah. And I think they do this without thumbs. Well, I mean, they do have grasping digits. I don't know if they really need opposable thumbs per se. But, yeah. Very good at grasping stuff. Thumbs are probably not quite as indispensable for different activities as you might imagine them to be. Yeah, look at them. So, the big rodents that lived on Caribbean islands, like Puerto Rico or like Anguilla, think of them like this. Oh. Very cool. And it's the porcupine from this line, asks Miss Capri Kell. Here, let's look at our tree of life here. Pause this. So porcupines are rodents, which is why you might think it looks a lot like a porcupine. You're on the right track, yeah. So it's part of this same clade, the same evolutionary group. But I'm not sure how close they are. So here's old world porcupines. Oh, and there's the Pacarana. Shoot. Dinomys branchiae. It's on the branch that leads to porcupines. You're really onto something there, Miss Capri Kell. Nice. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and stay safe, you too, by her grace. Thanks for being here. You sleep well. Have a great night. What about beavers? So beavers are nearby as well. Beavers are also rodents. Beavers, Castoridae. So it's a different family, but it's nearby. Okay. There's beavers right there, Castoridae. Castoromorpha is the larger group that includes Castoridae. And so, yeah, they're pretty close to the degus, porcupines, chinchillas, and more. Ambulariza is probably near like chinchillas. There we go. Yeah. So yeah, pretty neat. Rodents as a whole, there's so many species of them. It's like 1/5 of all mammal species are rodents. So there's something like 4,000 or 5,000 species of mammal today. 2,000 species of rodents. So again, we'll go up to mammals. This tree gives them 5,000 species. 2/5 of that is rodents. How crazy is that? They're what we call very speciose, meaning there's a ton of species. Huge diversity of rodents. So many different kinds, so many different species. It's pretty impressive. So there could have been a 300-pound chinchilla. Please, yes, once, says Miss Caprical. I mean, when we're talking about these critters like the plate-toothed giant hootia or the blunt-toothed giant hootia, Amblerrhiza, it could have looked, yeah, maybe something like that. Could have been adorable, you know? I really wish we got to see them in the wild. We really don't know exactly what they would have looked like. It could be that the first Amerindians to arrive on these islands would have seen them. It may have hunted them to extinction, potentially. But they may have gone extinct even before that. Anyhow, let's get back to this.
Amblerrhiza resembled the capybara of South America, weighing up to 100 pounds. It's the largest living rodent. Like it, Amblerrhiza probably had a squarish head, a flat nose, and no tail. But Amblerrhiza was 3 times bigger. The fossil hunters never found a large bone intact. Yet McPhee was able to build a plaster model of the rat based on the bones of an extinct relative and on the fragments from Cope's collection and the cave.
The most spectacular feature of this skeleton as it's now set out is the huge size of the skull, which you can see very easily, and then somewhat harder to see, perhaps, is the nature of the relationship in size between the forelimb and the hind limb. The hind limb is very massively built, implying that the animal used its hind limb to support its entire body weight.
Amblerrhiza was not only heavy, but slow. With such large hindquarters and small forelimbs, it must have lived free of predators, else nature wouldn't have let it waddle down the path of evolution, unlike its fleet-footed cousin. The fossils reveal other clues to the rat's life.
The animal probably spent a good deal of the time in postures where the weight of the animal was directed right over the lower skeleton, and that the forelimb did not support the weight, but instead was used to pull down branches and vegetation toward the mouth so that the animal could feed.
In the gardens of ancient Anguilla, Amblerrhiza may have been the only diner. Paleontologists have found no trace of other large mammals living alongside it.
So it didn't have competition there. Shows up on this island and, well, shoot, nobody's doing that job. It's what?
It's free real estate.
Yeah. They could just move in and take over, potentially. Yeah. And Debleg says, would we have known that porcupines had spikes? Quills. If we didn't have modern porcupines, if all we had were fossils, would we know that they had quills? Probably not. No, unless those quills preserve in the fossil record. It's the same thing like imagining only had fossils of these guys, would we know how bad they smelled? No, we wouldn't have any indication. This is the sort of thing that keeps paleontologists up at night sometimes, you know? What are we missing? Because we only have bones and teeth. Sometimes a few scant preserved soft tissues, but not very much. And sometimes there are fossils that pop up that show us things that we wouldn't have dreamed of before. Like this. So this is a dinosaur called Edmontosaurus regalis, and we always assumed that it was a kind of a flat-headed duckbill dinosaur. Because this is what its skull looks like. It doesn't have a big crest on the top of its skull. And yet there was a specimen
If you're feeling
found...
a bit cheated, try blaming the dinosaurs.
Thank you, GP Bear, for the 100 bits. There was a fossil found with soft tissue preserved. A fleshy crest there that shows that these guys did have a non-bony, just soft tissue crest on top of the head. That one really lucky specimen that had some preserved skin and soft tissue, all that stuff fossilized, it gave us a surprise, something we wouldn't have expected. How many other things are like that? How many other dinosaurs would have had bizarre soft tissue accoutrement, adornments, crests, frills, whatever, that just tended to rot away because they didn't have bone in it? Soft tissue. Good question. There are paleo artists like Brian Eng who try and get this idea across. Here's his Brachiosaurus depiction. Right here. With all of this extra fleshy stuff going on. Maybe they had stuff like this. We don't know. We need more fossils. And we need more people studying them. There's so much that is still out there waiting to be discovered. I think that's exciting. Yeah. Anyhow, cool stuff. Let's continue, because we gotta get through this.
Nothing could stop Amblyriza from growing as big as it wished, except geography. An island of 34 square miles cannot support a race of 300-pound rats.
Well, it could.
There must have been more to the story, and more to the island.
Anyway, there probably was. Sea levels were lower at the time, all that stuff. Yeah. Anywho, let's take a look at a map. So, Gia, there we go. Is a British overseas territory. So Anguilla is south of, way south of Puerto Rico. You can actually see in this figure right there. Here's Puerto Rico. Oh no, never mind. Hang on, it's east. There's Puerto Rico there, and there's Anguilla, so it's not far away. Interesting. Yeah. So anyway, this sort of thing happens sometimes when you get islands. Small animals, mice, voles, things like that, rodents, they tend to get bigger on isolated islands, especially if there's no major predators on those islands. They don't have to be small in order to avoid predation anymore. They can afford to get bigger and bigger and bigger. Being big proffers them advantages. Contrast that with large mammals that end up on small islands. They tend to shrink. They evolve generation to generation to get smaller. Let's see, like on the Channel Islands off of California. A video from the Field Museum. We saw this at La Brea too.
We usually think of mammoths as roaming in huge herds across vast open lands. But some of them lived in the most restricted environments of all, islands.
Yep.
There, over tens of thousands of years, the process of evolution helped these giants to survive by shrinking them. How did they get to islands in the first place? Some just swam if the islands weren't too far away.
Elephants tend to
Climate
be pretty
played a
good
role
at swimming.
too. During ice ages, sea levels dropped as more water was taken up in glaciers. That exposed the seafloor around some islands, so mammoths could just walk across. But unfortunately, when water levels rose again, the mammoths were sometimes stranded on their islands and cut off from their original herds. Over time, animals in the isolated populations became smaller. Why? When you're small, you need less food to survive.
Yep.
Which is helpful in places where the food supply is limited. Being smaller also makes you nimbler, good for climbing steep slopes to find food. Finally, being big helps you fight off predators, but most
there are no
islands don't have large predators.
Yeah.
So, with no need to be big, island mammoths, through the process of evolution, shrank. And mammoths weren't the only ones. Other proboscideans, such as pygmy elephants in the Mediterranean islands, pygmy stegodons in Indonesia, and pygmy Asian elephants in Borneo today, all shrank when isolated on islands.
Yep.
In fact,
And so these are not the individual animals that shrink over time. That's not how evolution works. This is generation after generation. The small ones just tend to do better. And so you get those genes for smallness that spread throughout the population, and over time, generation to generation, you get an ensmallening. So if each subsequent generation gets a little bit smaller, and if the smaller ones of that generation tend to do better, you get an overall downward trend in size. It's the opposite for, like I said, when things like rodents end up on islands without predators. An example of that in where did that book go? Here it is. There's a nice example in this book here. Island Dwarfs and Giants, I think was the headline for it. There we go. Backwards. Island Giants and Dwarfs. There we go. So this is to scale. These little elephants here. Paleoloxodon falconeri, which lived on Mediterranean islands. They got really small, and these rodents got bigger. So this is Lethia, giant dormouse from Malta and Sicily. So these elephants were about hip height to a grown person. And the mice are almost hip height to them. Dormice, I guess, are not true mice, but whatever. Rodents. The rodents got big, the elephants got small on islands. It's interesting what a lack of predators will do in a situation like that. If you're small, suddenly you can get big. And if you're really big, you don't have to be so big anymore. You could reduce down to a more reasonable size, especially for a small island. Smaller critters tend to do better where there's less food in insular spaces
Mediterranean
like that.
islands, pygmy stegodons in Indonesia, and pygmy Asian elephants in Borneo today all shrank when isolated on islands. In fact, many kinds of animals all over the world have distinct species that resulted from this island dwarfism.
Yep.
And
So
so,
this is a pattern that we see again and again on islands. Island evolution is really fascinating.
great big powerful mammoth provides us with a small but mighty example in the pygmy mammoth of how species adapt to changing environments through the process of evolution.
Pretty cool stuff. Yeah. Here is a link to that video. Good stuff. And I'll give you a link to the Amblyriza one too. But we've got to move on now. We're going to jump into Who Wants to Be a Paleontologist. There's that link to the Paleo World episode. This is something I've been looking forward to for a long time. We used to do Who Wants to Be a Paleontologist streams like this, trivia games, almost every week. It was often a Friday thing, and this is the first Friday I've streamed in a while from here in the office. This is the first time we'll be playing Who Wants to Be a Paleontologist since I lived in the old apartment. It was like a year and a half ago. So I'm excited to bring this back. And I hope you enjoy it. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with Who Wants to Be a Paleontologist. You ready? Let's do it. Well, everybody. Welcome to Who Wants to Be a Paleontologist. I'm your host, Danny Anduza, and we're about to play a trivia game. We'll see what everybody's learned here on Paleontologizing over the last month. We're going to go over 10 different questions, getting progressively more specific and more difficult. We'll see if you have what it takes to be a paleontologist and win the $1 million. I don't know why our lighting isn't working properly. Give me a second here. There we go. That's what we want. I'll tell you how this is going to work. I've got a bunch of questions here. What's up with this? And thank you, GP Bear, for the 100 bits. I appreciate it.
I'm impressed.
Thank you. Why is this being... Okay, what happened here? I had all of these questions pre-written out and everything. What's going on? Hang on a second.
If you're feeling a bit cheated, try blaming the dinosaurs.
I spent like 2 hours doing this.
So do you want to be a paleontologist?
They're all just wiped clean now? This has never happened before. I just checked it right before stream, too. second. What's going on with this?
Let's protect our fossils, because if they're removed, America loses them forever.
And Dodd AEK, thank you for continuing your sub there from a Prime or a gift to Tier 1. I appreciate it. Thank you, thank you. I literally just checked this 5 minutes before I started the broadcast today. And all of my questions and answers have disappeared. I'm not going to spend an hour putting this back together, so if it's gone, and we'll just have to...
A real mean kid. With 6-inch daggers for teeth, he was the terror of his neighborhood.
Winter for Wolves, thank you for the follow. I appreciate it. Welcome to Paleontologizing.
Kali will not like this.
Thank you, Adult Viper, for the 6 months of support. Thank you for the Prime there. I really appreciate it. Thank you, thank you. Hang on a second. I'm going to try for another couple minutes, and if it doesn't work, then it doesn't work, and we'll do something else. Yeah, they're all gone. Oh, here we... That's so dumb.
Very
Okay.
costly business
Hang on.
nowadays to articulate a dinosaur.
Anga Mirand, thank you so much for the 800 bits. Really appreciate that. Thank you, thank you. We will salvage this. It's just gonna take me a minute. The questions and the answers are all here, but here, these are like different... Here, I'll show you how it works. There are different fields here that, they will repopulate, so it remembers, maybe because of cookies or something, what I'd put in before. So I just have to go through and manually click in order to bring them back up. So this is going to take a minute, but we will make it work. So hang tight. In fact, let's... There. I'll give you a video to hold you over in the meantime. Which one should we do? Let's do the 6-foot turkey one, shall we? I'm going to continue working on this. I'll work as fast as I can. I'll be right back in a minute. Enjoy a video in the meantime here.
Distorted, but I don't think it's a computer. Yeah, it's good shape, too. It's 5, 6 feet high, I'm guessing 9 feet long. Look at the extraordinary... What'd you do?
He touched it. Dr. Grant's not mission compatible.
They got it in for me. And look at the half-moon-shaped bones in the wrists. No wonder these guys learn how to fly. No, seriously. All right. Well, maybe dinosaurs have more in common with present-day birds than they do with reptiles.
That doesn't look very scary. More like a 6-foot turkey.
Turkey,
Turkey.
6-foot turkey. Turkey, huh? 6-foot turkey. Okay. Try to imagine yourself in the Cretaceous period. Try to imagine yourself in the Cretaceous period. Imagine yourself in the Cretaceous period. You get your first look at this 6-foot turkey as you enter a clearing.
Oh boy, so this still doesn't seem to be working. I think this site is just having issues right now. And there's nothing I can do about that. It was working this morning, it's not working now. I just went through and added in all the questions and answers and everything, and it's just... It's just broken. It's borked at the moment. Sorry about that, everybody. Shoot, that's really lousy, and I... Really disappointed there. Let's give it one more try. Make sure that I turn my ad blocker off just to see if that has any effect on it whatsoever. It shouldn't. But here we go. Yeah, it's just not working. You put in the correct answer afterward, and it... Start again. This is just a trial. I put A as the correct answer. That is not correct. Yeah, it's just borked. And also, turning off ad blocker just makes it unusable. So... I apologize, everybody. There's nothing I can do about that right now. Shoot. Yeah. Apologies. Tasty JK, thank you for the follow.
Something about how the world was 80 million years ago.
Thank you for the follow. Welcome, welcome. And thank you, Lilith Hobo, for the 100 bits.
It's not much, but I hope it helps with the mishap.
I appreciate that, Lilith Hobo. Thank you for the 100 bits. And Ms. Art Rules, thank you for the 5 gift subs there. Thank you.
MS Art Rules is getting serious with those 5 gift subs.
Thank you, Ms. Art Rules. There's now 5 people in the chat who won't have to worry about any ads for the next month. I'll be out digging dinosaurs in Wyoming before any of them have to see another ad on this channel. Thank you, Ms. Art Rules. That is brilliant. I appreciate your generosity.
Heard it may not seem like much, 500 bits goes a long way towards supporting science. I'll tweet here on Twitch.
Lordy, thank you for the 500 bits.
I don't need to be a paleontologist this week.
I guess so. Thank you for the 500 bits, Lordy. Thank you. Yeah. And Karenea too, it's your birthday today? Happy birthday to you. I hope you're having a really good one. Thank you for spending part of it here with us. I'm honored. Happiest of happy birthdays to you. Congrats on another trip around the sun. I hope this next one is your best one yet. Good stuff. And I dressed up and everything. Exactly, Horns fan. I spent several hours writing out those questions and getting them all formatted correctly and everything, and now the site's just not working. superteachertools.us. You failed us. And thank you, Golganak, for the 100 bits.
Or whenever you find a spot smiley face. Enjoy your vacation.
I appreciate it. Thank you kindly.
Really spectacular, spared no expense.
Let's just try something
Gifted a tier 1 sub to Paleostream.
real quick. Oh, and thank you, Nell, for gifting Paleostream. Excellent. Is Paleostream here in the chat? I haven't seen him. But oh boy, ad blocker's not working there. That's not gonna work. Okay.
Jump!
Abort the Firefox.
Your cousin Marvin Berry.
And Mick Canary, thank you for the raid. Welcome to Paleontologizing.
Well, listen to this.
Mick Canary, I hope you had a good stream. Welcome to Paleontologizing. Deb Leg says, what kind of site is it? It is a really chintzy website, like trying to provide resources to teachers. So we've got different kinds of games and stuff like that. Online spinner, you know, stuff like this. But the millionaire one that I have, here we go. Hey, yes, and that's not. Here. Start this game over. Edit this game. Let me give it one more try. Maybe if I get everything all filled out again and then I hit this other button, it'll work. Let's try that. Let me play another video for you real quick. But first, from Ko-Fi. Holy cow. Thank you, Ko-Fi supporter. That's very generous of you. A little something for your vacation. Hope you have a great trip. I really appreciate that, and that makes a difference. Thank you, Ko-Fi supporter there. Good stuff. Yeah. Thank you. I really appreciate that. That makes a substantial difference, and I appreciate it. Here, I'm gonna play another video for you real quickly. let me run this one more time, and I'll see if we can get it to work. I'm not giving up just yet. We'll give it one last try. So here, check out a movie trailer that I recut. I think you might enjoy it. There we go.
Location unknown.
Charter 373. This is Commander Mills. My ship was hit by an undocumented asteroid. Send help.
We've crash landed on an uncharted celestial body.
Location unknown.
There's something alien out there. You need to be quiet and move.
All right. Almost done with this. That one. That one. Okay. Last save at 4:07. And thank you, Adrian Jaworski, for the follow. Welcome to Paleontologizing. It's good to have you here. Okay, all of that looks correct.
Tradoon.
It's not working.
Tradoon.
It keeps saying it's an incorrect answer even when it's not. And it won't let me progress through them as a result. It just gets stuck. I'm trying to see if there's anything else that I may have overlooked here. And I don't think there is. I think it's just broken. I'm sorry, everybody. It's just not going to work. I did try the other browser. It's not working at all in Firefox. McLevin, yeah. Like, it won't even load the page. Yeah, and again, this just started within the last couple hours. That's pretty annoying. Anyway, I'm sorry, I was really excited for that, everybody. I had a lot of good questions queued up for everybody. It was going to be a lot of fun. So, superteachertools.us. Well, it's a free service. Can't really complain that much, but it's just not working. Yeah. Could we still do the questions? I don't know if it's really gonna work the same way, Claire. Just because you wouldn't be able to, I don't know, we'll try it again when I get back, I guess. Yeah, it kind of defeats the purpose. Yeah. So sorry everybody. Here, give me a second here. Let me change back into my regular clothes and we could do questions by polls, but it's gonna be awful clunky. And it might take more than an hour. We only have an hour. 50 minutes now, actually. So it's just not gonna work. I'm sorry, everybody. Yeah. Give me a second. I'll be right back, and then we'll continue that Paleo World episode. We'll watch it till the end, and whatever other questions people might have, we'll roll with those. So I'll be right back. There we go. Well, it feels good to be out of that monkey suit at least. Yeah. Let's get back to this.
Polarizer from growing as big as it wished, except geography. An island of 34 square miles cannot support a race of 300-pound rats. There must have been more to the story, and more to the island. The inhabitants of Anguilla harvest the sea more than the land. What little grows on this Caribbean island.
And hang on a second. Ms. Art Real says, do you have any recommendations for leech race? He wants to be a paleontologist. Many of the marine kind, right? Could you rephrase your question, Ms. Art Rules? I'm not sure what you mean. Maybe of the marine kind? Are you asking for advice on how to become a paleontologist? Get back to this in a minute, but this is an important question if you're asking what I think you're asking. If anybody here wants to study fossils, maybe become a paleontologist, the best piece of advice that I can give you is just start doing it. How though? Get yourself into a museum, or onto a fossil field crew, or yeah, if you happen to have a museum near where you live, if you're lucky enough to be in a region where there is a natural history museum, where there are some paleontologists employed there, see if you can start volunteering there. Or failing that, if they don't have a volunteer program, or if you're not in a financial position to be able to volunteer your time, see if you can get a job there in any capacity. Working the gift shop, working as a custodian, working the front desk, whatever you can do, security guard. Being there at a place where fossil science is happening, you never know what kinds of opportunities might arise. You start hanging out with paleontologists, you get to know them. Pretty soon you might be working in the laboratory, you know, during your spare time, helping clean fossils. Or maybe giving people tours of the exhibits or the collections, stuff like that. That's how I got my start as a paleontologist. When I was in high school, started volunteering at the Museum of Paleontology in Berkeley, California, just down the road from me up here. There's me cleaning the Tyrannosaurus cast skeleton there with a big extendo dust mop thing. It was during my time at UCMP that I started making connections, getting to know people, learning what it's like to actually do paleontology. I went from being a kid who had always been obsessed with dinosaurs and had read all kinds of books, watched documentaries and all that stuff, to somebody who was actually there where the action is. Hanging out with paleontologists, having lunch with them, listening in on seminars and scientific talks, helping with lab work, helping with curation work, and eventually helping with field work. There are lots and lots of opportunities out there for people who want to get involved in fossil science. The best piece of advice I can give you is just put yourself where the action is, see if you can get yourself into a museum, see if you can volunteer, or just get involved. Going to school and taking all the right classes and doing coursework, all of that is important too, but you can do all of that and not become a paleontologist. You can do all of that and not actually get into fossil science. If you want to get into fossil science, get into fossil science, you know? There are lots of programs throughout the US and around the world that take volunteers to go and do field work, or to work in laboratories, all kinds of stuff like that. It's been really heartening to see people join up with the project in St. George, Utah, and help out there. There will be people who end up pursuing a career in paleontology after the work that they did there in St. George. Does that make sense? Paleontology, one of the reasons why I really like this field, feel at home in it, is that it's sometimes, at the best of times, kind of anti-credentialist. There are people who make incredible discoveries, huge contributions to fossil science, who don't have a PhD, who don't have a master's degree, who might not even have a college diploma in some cases, or a high school diploma rather. It's not rocket surgery. You don't need credentials to actually do the work. It takes all different kinds of people, whether it's field work or lab work or curatorial work in the museum. I think that's pretty cool, you know? Paleontology is one of those sciences where people who are avocational, people who are hobbyists, they can actually make real contributions to the advancement of our field, and that's pretty cool. Anyhow, yeah. And Ziggy Nightmare says, can confirm. I worked in the gift shop for the museum and learned a lot, met a lot of people from different departments. It really gets your foot in the door. And all you have to do is ask, and someone will be more than happy to answer questions or introduce you to the right people. Exactly, Ziggy Nightmare. Thank you so much for contributing your viewpoint there. That's exactly my experience too. I'm really glad that you agree. And Leech Race says, thanks, Bunchesman. Yeah. If I might presume for a minute, hopefully I'm not being too presumptuous, but if you're down in SoCal, Southern California, there are a lot of opportunities around you there. Various museums, Los Angeles, San Diego, Hemet, lots of places.
Detectives in a sense, but part of the
There's an abundance
joy of our field is being able to.
And Murph, thank you for those gift subs there.
Sometimes are extremely obscure.
Really appreciate that, Murph. Thank you. Yeah. And Ziggy Nightmare says, of course, it was one of my favorite jobs. I was allowed to walk the exhibits during breaks as well, so extra learning time. There you go. Yeah. just being there in the right place at the right time makes all the difference in the world. The connections that I've maintained with the Museum of Paleontology in Berkeley, even after I moved away to Montana, you know, when I came back, I kind of had a place to land, and I continued, you know, talking to the same people, interacting with the same people, and there are a bunch of opportunities that came out of that. If I hadn't volunteered at UCMP when I was in high school, if I hadn't worked there, I wouldn't be streaming today. That's a series of dominoes being knocked over that led more or less directly to me being here on Twitch. Not directly, it was a winding road, but if I hadn't been on that path, I wouldn't be here right now, you know? But yeah. And Petrodactylus has got an analogy from another field, yeah. I got into the gaming industry because I worked at a retro game store that jumped to an admin role at a gaming studio, and now I'm doing UI art. Smaller roles absolutely play a huge part with getting a foot in the door. Exactly, yeah. And Racodactylus, how are you doing, Reiko? Reiko says, I need to be more anti-credentialist. I've been correctly called to task for being a little elitist about that in recent past. I need to work on that. Danger of being in academia too long is absorbing that mentality, because it is everywhere. And I mean, I think maybe in your field in particular, Reiko, it's more excusable just in the sense that, or maybe it isn't, I don't know. But when you're talking about why people believe weird things, pseudoscience, conspiracy theories, and all kinds of quackery and crankery and stuff, one way to kind of hedge against that just a little bit is to lead with your credentials. Like, yeah, I did my PhD at such and such university. This is what my thesis was about. You know, it establishes a certain degree of credibility right there off the bat. There are cranks and weirdos and pseudoscientists and conspiracy theorists and people who do have credentials too, but yeah. I don't know. Here in paleontology, I think it's a little bit easier to be anti-credentialist. In the sense that some of the people who are real movers and shakers in our field are people who might not have a degree at all. People like Jack Horner.
Horner figured out that such rapidly growing...
Stop it, YouTube. Okay.
This. The 1993 classic film Jurassic Park, with its dinosaur resurrection experiment gone wrong, and its embattled hero, famed paleontologist Alan Grant.
You consulted on that movie.
I did consult on all those movies.
And they said that the guy Alan Grant was...
Yep. So Jack never did finish college, and that's, well, very good reason. He's very dyslexic. So he went back to school a bunch of times, and here he is describing that process here. Oh, hang on. Yeah. There you go, Nerduino. So Jack also learned by doing, you know? And Legito92, thanks for the follow. Welcome, welcome. I also want to point out, this is not my fault that the this part of the text is missing. This is in the video right here. I didn't do that. So if you're thinking, oh, what's Danny doing? That's not me. Anyhow, yeah. So Jack very barely graduated high school too. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, and then Jack got to go to college. Again, he was invited there because he built an exhibit in the local library that he says is still there. Anyhow, the point is, I guess the overarching point that I'm trying to make is that paleontology is more accessible than you would think. One of the most common questions that I get when I'm out streaming from the field, when we're doing streams from live dinosaur digs during the summer, people ask me, well, what kind of a degree do you have to get in order to be able to go out there and work? And the answer is, you don't have to have a degree. In fact, in order to volunteer on a field crew, you don't have to have any prior experience whatsoever, oftentimes. We'll often take people who are completely new to the whole thing, because we're always in need of volunteer labor. So if you have dreams of joining a dinosaur dig, that's absolutely attainable. You can absolutely do that. Provided you're, willing to work and you're willing to put up with adverse conditions and stuff like that, and, if you're not too precious about things. And some people, I understand, have to be precious about things because they might have various conditions or proclivities or whatever, and I understand that. Field work isn't for everybody. In the same way that lab work isn't for everybody, or museum curatorial work isn't for everybody. But if this is something that you're really deeply passionate about, see if you can get involved. I think this might be... Is this the one here? No, a different one. Looking for a video where we kind of introduce members of the crew. This is in Wyoming a few years back. Should be summer 2023 from Wyoming. There we go. Do we have shape? Yeah. Let's just try and find it.
I've always been a raw kind of guy. Just bite into
Oh, yeah?
it like you.
I'm hoping to. I'll have to lug out the power station and the Starlink, but let's do it.
Well, his name's Adam, right? Here. Introducing members of the crew.
Not for you, so thank you for keeping all of our gear dry and everything. It's
fired.
So,
like, what would be a classic example of a therapsid that they might be familiar with?
Okay, so if you've ever seen Walking with Dinosaurs, the first episode.
So just like a brief going around here. Here's me. Everybody knows me. There's Quinn right there. So Quinn is kind of obliquely related to paleontology. He's always been really enthusiastic about paleo. He might go back to school for it at some point, but for now he works for like an environmental monitoring company. But he comes out and volunteers with us in the field to be able to actually do the work. And he's going to have his name on various scientific papers and stuff, despite not necessarily having, like, you know, a doctorate or whatever in this field. Nick Longridge there does have a doctorate. He's, I think he's with the University of Bath in the UK. But he's a professor there. I don't think he has students, but he does teach, and he conducts research. Named a lot of new species. Ethan Cowgill here was an undergrad at time of filming. Our expedition lead was an undergraduate. Ethan is now graduated, and he's going to go off to grad school pretty soon, I bet you. And you can't see Adam. Adam is behind Fisher right here, but Adam is just a friend of Ethan's. I think they met at Weber State College, and Adam's like, yeah, someday when I have kids, I want my kids to know that I was out digging up dinosaurs. It's like, I want to win the coolest dad award in my neighborhood. So somebody without any prior experience, but yeah, somebody who just wanted to help out, and he was a lot of help. That was great. And then Fisher was an undergrad at the time. He's now going to grad school in the fall. Really excited for Fisher, but he's really interested in fossil mammals.
They can fish like herons by kind of darting their heads forward.
Yeah.
We're testing the idea that they use their claws to scoop fish out of the water, like grizzly bears do. Well, grizzly bears do. They're awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I've done heterodont crocodile, like therapsid.
Really advanced tyrannosaurs evolved through time.
Which is when somebody ends their stream and
I'm explaining to everybody the concept of a raid here.
Yeah.
The green chair is for you guys. By the way.
There you go. Yeah.
That's your seat. Stink?
I don't know if Stink is here right now, but yeah. Oh, and we're getting a raid, which is when somebody ends their stream and then they bring all of their viewers into our stream. So yeah, thank you, Robin Graves. Appreciate that. Yeah.
That's a good thing, right?
Welcome, everybody. That's a very good thing. Yeah. Twitch is actually kind of weird in that, like, it could be difficult to discover new channels and stuff. Their discovery is not fantastic. So, like, raids are one of the biggest ways that new people find new content. So, welcome, everybody. If you're here for the first time, this is Paleontologizing. My name is Danny Anduza. I work on dinosaurs, and
I was hoping to find that part where we're all introducing ourselves, but here, just to get the point across that not everybody on the crew is...
Everybody here works on dinosaurs, though. Maybe we should go around and, like, introduce ourselves real quick, if you guys are okay with that?
Sure.
Yeah? Let's do clockwise, I guess. So, yeah, Quinn?
And then also, we had somebody here in the chat right now. Polyot, did you say that you worked on Jurassic World Evolution? There's a period when the production team had hopes of getting Jack Horner involved, but it never ended up happening. I wish that had happened. I feel like maybe they could have overridden that, like, IP bias where, like, oh, all the dinosaurs have to look like they do in the Jurassic World movies. It's just, talk about tying a weight around your neck. They could have been so much better if they could have stuck to the actual science. But anyway. Yeah.
Quinn Hawkins, I think you guys...
Albeit as a lawyer. Oh, okay. You're lucky you didn't get eaten. Shoot. You know what they say about dinosaurs and lawyers. my tip. If you want to get out of jury duty, dress as a dinosaur. Dress up like a dinosaur.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Wow.
Yeah. You'll get dismissed every time. And I think it's because lawyers, most of them have seen Jurassic Park, the movie, in law school. Yep. And they've seen what happens to the lawyer in that movie. They don't want that happening to them. So if you're dressed as a dinosaur, they'll just instinctively send you home. So there you go. It's a tip for... There you go. You can take that one to the bank. I've had people point that out to me a lot during my time, and yeah, I'm sure. I'm sorry to point it out again. I'm sure you've heard that joke a million times, but yeah. And it works if you put on a dinosaur t-shirt. I don't think so, Ms. Art Rules. You have to actually look like a dinosaur. Then they'll dismiss you. It's kind of like here we go. There's a running joke on the show 30 Rock that Liz Lemon can get out of jury duty if she dresses up as Princess Leia.
I don't really think it's fair for me to be in a jury because I can read thoughts.
Dismiss.
I grew up watching.
So yeah, same concept then. But very cool. Got to meet Spielberg, Goldblum, B.D. Wong, Sam Neill, Laura Dern. You got to meet Laura Dern? Holy cow! Hollywood. My goodness. You got to meet Laura Dern? I'm jealous. I'm very jealous. Big childhood crush of mine. Yeah. And I remember Spielberg asked us if he could have a free copy of the game. We were all very confused because, you know, he owns the rights. He probably doesn't know how to get it. He was expecting like for you to hand him a disc or something. Yeah. Anyhow. Yeah. Where were we? We're getting all distracted here. Oh yeah, we're gonna do crew introductions, yeah.
As Maeve saw me on the stream yesterday, I was Quinn the Fossil Man.
Yeah, in chat, yeah.
Yeah, I'm from Buffalo, New York. And, yeah, just came out with Ethan. Go look for some
22 minutes. Thank you, Claire.
Cretaceous fossils and whatnot, and it's a good time.
Quinn found a turtle today that we're very excited about, so.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a bit, probably.
That might have been Turtle Hill.
Yeah.
That might have been what turned into that. There will be, I don't know how many scientific papers written on that site. I think that might have been the one that Quinn found, Turtle Hill.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a bit, probably.
Turtle for the ages.
Yeah.
My name's Ethan. I work at the Utah Geological Survey, and I do a lot of dinosaur digging in the American West, often with Danny Anduza here.
Yeah.
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 So, and I love how humble Ethan is. He could have said a lot more. I mean, yeah, shoot. Ethan is to call him a real go-getter sounds incredibly condescending, just because, I don't know, you will be hearing this name a lot in the future in the annals of dinosaur paleontology. Ethan Cowgill. Remember that name, everybody.
I'm Adam. I don't do anything with dinosaurs. I do construction.
See? Hence all the orange.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. But, Adam's been instrumental in making things work today. That supply tent that you see over there was missing a whole bunch of parts, including one of the, ribs that it needs to stand up. And Adam, if it starts raining, I'll probably show everybody. But he was able to construct one of the ribs out of some 2x4s. And, pretty ingenious.
Pretty awesome.
So, yeah.
So Adam here, he, I think maybe it was in a different video he talks about this when we were sitting down around the campfire again. But he's like, I don't study fossils. He's not even, that particularly interested in fossils. Thinks they're really cool, but he just thought this sounded like a really neat opportunity and wanted to come out and join us, and he was a tremendous help. So I'm just trying to emphasize the point that not everybody on a fossil dig has credentials, degrees, or even a long-standing interest in fossils. We just need people to help out oftentimes. So if you're interested in this kind of thing, there are possibilities out there for you, I bet you.
Hi, I'm Fisher McDermott. I'm an undergraduate lab tech at Ohio University, and I do mostly digital preparation work on a number of archosaurs, including a bunch of crocs and then a prosauropodamorph from Africa.
Oh, which one's that?
I don't think it's described yet, but it's early Jurassic.
Very cool. Very, very cool.
Secret.
Well, nice. Yeah, so we've got a pretty eclectic crew. Nick Longrich is here, too. I'm not sure if he's going to show up on stream. We've had a long day. He might just be resting now. But, anyway, we're just hanging out. I might grab something to drink in a second. And let me find a better substrate to put the tripod on so I don't have to keep holding it.
Anyway, we'll have more of those streams like that this next summer. I'm going to be leaving for the field at the very end of May. Maybe around the 27th might be when I take off. But, at 29th and 30th, we might very well have streams on those days, actually. We shall see. But anyway, the entire month of June, from start to finish, I'm hoping to stream every single day from the field as we go out there and dig up more dinosaurs. And other critters as well. Very excited for fieldwork this year. It's going to be a ton of fun. Anywho, with all of that having been said, again, I apologize that we didn't have Who Wants to Be a Paleontologist. I really wish the website were working. Nothing I can do about that right now. And YouTube just hit 3,500 followers? Not too shabby. That's excellent, Claire. Phenomenal. There we go. 3.5 thousand subscribers. 766 videos. Holy cow. We do have a YouTube page for anybody who, if you want to watch any of our past broadcasts over the past, 2 years, I think, at this point? How far back did these go? Pretty far. There's a bunch of videos on here that have close to 0 views. And some of them are really good. Many of these are, especially the older ones, from various trips to museums and stuff. In fact, we can go all the way back to some of the very first streams we ever did. I think I have a few of our oldest streams on here from 2020. So take a look when you get the chance. youtube.com/@paleontologizing. And there are playlists too for the summer field trips. Exactly, Claire. Good stuff. And maybe the trivia game could be revived after the vacation. We'll see, Petrodactylus. I'll see if the website's working then. Again, it was working this morning. Even if it's working right now, we don't have enough time to get it done. I've got to go. It's 4:45. I still have a few things to pack into my suitcase for this big trip to Puerto Rico. Again, I'm going to be gone all of next week. So there are no streams next week. I'm sorry to report that, but I'm also really looking forward to having a vacation. This is going to be my first real vacation, like, let's go have a vacation sort of vacation. Not doing any other stuff. My first one in definitely more than 5 years. Yeah.
If you're feeling a bit cheated, try blaming the dinosaurs.
And Golganek, thank you for the 100 bits.
Just you and Lordy and Yous go explore and enjoy some cool times in Puerto Rico. Exciting.
I appreciate that, Golganek. We're really looking forward to it. It's going to be a ton of fun. Again, first time I've missed more than a week's worth of streams since I started streaming back in 2020. So first time in 5 years I'll be missing more than a week, I guess. I think that's the case anyway. So I look forward to seeing all of you when I get back. And check out my Blue Sky if you want to see updates from the trip and stuff, and maybe, just maybe, we'll even post some things to the Discord. We'll see. But anyway, with that, time to wrap up here. So, let's put our credits over this Deinonychus skull. And let's see who else is streaming on Twitch right now, whom we might be able to raid into. I see Paleo Stream is on. Let's go right into Paleo Stream. Paleo artist Joshua Knupe is doing some paleo art live on stream right now. We'll go check it out. Have a great vacation. You deserve it. Thank you, Murph. Hey, I appreciate that. Thank you for all the well wishes, everybody. And thank you to everybody appearing here in our credits. Subscribers and resubscribers, cheerers and gifters, new followers and moderators. Thank you for all of your hard work, as always. I appreciate you more than you know. I'm going to miss everybody over the next week, but I'm going to have a good time. And I'll be really excited to show you photos and just tell you about what Puerto Rico was like. So I hope to see you all as soon as I get back. May 14th, I think, should be my first stream back, as it says on the calendar. I look forward to seeing you all then. In the meantime, everybody take care of themselves, stay curious, keep up with fossil news if you feel like it. Well, I'll be updating everybody when I get back. It's gonna be good. Take care, everyone. I'll see ya on the 14th.